Okay. We should now be live. Welcome everyone. This is Andres Restart, and I am joined by my good friend, co-host, and occasional editor, Brandon. How you doing, buddy?
Good. I was just wondering. I'm like, man, there's some kind of audio glitch. It's playing twice. I had the stream on in the background, and it's delayed. It's just looping. But we're good now. No, I'm ready to go talk about the Direct Switch 2 stuff. We got some good stuff to talk about. I've just been very busy, obviously, with my job, but then with the video that we came out with today for the graphics comparison for Thousand Year Door, which I've been working on for days. It's finally out. You guys should go check it out after the podcast. But yeah, I haven't had time to sleep much, so kind of
Been
tired.
grinding, buddy.
Yes,
You've
sir.
been grinding. Yeah. But guys, if you could let me know how everything looks and sounds. There is some background music. Let me know if it's too quiet or too loud. Let me know if Brandon sounds okay. Let me know if I sound okay, and if hopefully everything looks good too. So just let me know now while we're still early on the stream. But for those new here, this is a Nintendo podcast we tend to do every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And today, what we're going to be talking about is everything surrounding the Nintendo Direct that happened last week. So this includes talking about our impressions of the Direct after having thought about it for a few days. It includes talking about how we feel about F-Zero 99 after having been able to play it. It includes talking about this graphics comparison that Brandon and myself have been working on. Brandon did a lot of the work for this. We'll talk more about that, but we'll talk about Paper Mario 1,000 Euro, just how good it looks, and then also other games that were there. And on top of that, just kind of the general impressions of this Direct. I did use the wording Nintendo Direct Fallout, which may have a little bit of a negative connotation. And I want to stress, I am not saying the Direct was bad. I just think that overall there is a little bit of a negative opinion on the Direct as a whole. And obviously
in certain communities, perhaps our own.
Yeah, and the point is that people have opinions.
Yeah.
And there are opinions out there that have been made known that are negative on the Direct. So we're going to be talking about that overall, and just the overall impacts of the Direct, and essentially everything surrounding that. And some of that does include potentially some Nintendo Switch 2 stuff. There's a Direct suggestion that we're ending the generation. Are there some Nintendo Switch 2 hints in the Direct? Some think so. But on top of that, there have been some Switch 2 details that have surfaced recently that I want to talk about as well. Maybe some news on some third-party games, maybe some news on the potential power of the Switch 2. I think that's kind of misleading, but that's what we're talking about tonight. So that's the general plan. But checking the chat here, let's see. I think people are saying that it's Studio Doodle says it sounds good. Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Orlando Multa, everything sounds good. Music is just fine. Awesome. Thank you very much. Awesome. So we're 4 minutes in. We have about 50-ish people watching. Guys, if you could like the stream, that's super helpful. It'll get it out to more people. But I think to get things started, we could just kind of dive into our very loose, chill Q&A, and then we'll get into the topics we have planned for the evening. But as I pull up the Q&A banner, Brandon, anything new with you beyond just working hard?
No. Spoiler alert for a later topic. I haven't had time to do anything but work and edit this video. So I haven't played F-Zero 99. I haven't played anything. I had time to watch a few YouTube videos here and there to hear people's thoughts on the Direct. And generally from the content creators I follow, people seem to have really liked it. But it also depends on if you're big on... a lot of it depends on if you're big on Thousand Year Door, which of course I am, which is why I took the time to make that video, because I really wanted to make it, and I really enjoyed making it. I had a really fun time. I learned a few new effects. You'll see some cool stuff in that video with I did some animated drop shadows underneath arrows, because I had to move the arrow and the drop shadow, so I had to animate both of them in sync, which I thought looked pretty good. Some fancy stuff that I had to learn on the fly during the edit, which is always fun.
Yeah. So just to kind of explain, right? Because so Brian and I have kind of come to this agreement that at least when it comes to kind of like the graphic comparisons, we're gonna be working a lot more closely together. And Brandon puts a lot of work into these, right? So he's responsible for, he does pretty much most of the research, and he prepares kind of an outline of what to talk. We kind of talk about like what direction we want the video to go in, and based off that, he does his research, he acquires the B-roll, he does the comparisons, and then he'll kind of provide with me kind of like a general outline, like a loose script. And then, you know, I read it, you know, I may give Brandon some notes, and then, you know, I record, right? I record, and I talk about the points he brings up. I add some of my own different things I've noticed as well. And then I edit all the audio. I send over to Brandon, and he spends the time. This is probably the longest part of the edit, where you go ahead and you've collected all the footage and you piece it and compare it together. And that's probably the longest piece. And then he sends it back to me. I do the music stuff, the thumbnails, the titling, all of that, you know, and then it's out. They take a little bit more time than other videos, but you know,
for sure
they're fun.
They're fun to do. They're fun edits. They're not just the oh, here we're gonna cut and slam some random B-roll in here. This is like I created a little bit of art with this video.
Yeah. And I guess the plan, right, is we want to make a more concerted effort of kind of like analyzing and talking about graphics in different Nintendo games, and also maybe doing a little bit of education as well, right? Like telling you like what ambient occlusion means, or global illumination, which, you know, I understand more from a very like a kind of, I guess, layman terms, right? Like, and then Brandon understands it on a more tech side of things, right? But that's kind of like why it's good that we work together, right? Because like Brandon talks to me about it,
yin and yang.
I interpret it and I kind of make it more digestible for more people. But it's been fun, and so like we kind of want to continue to do this and build it up. But I'm pretty happy with how it came out. But we'll talk more about our actual analysis on Paper Mario when we get to the topic. But checking with the chat here, I noticed some interesting questions. So this one here, Instinct, thank you. I'm glad you think I'm the man. But Instinct asks, when we getting Metroid Prime 4? So I think it's not a planned topic, so you know we can dive into it now. It's fine. Metroid Prime 4 is not in the Direct. Nope. Now, while I've been consistently talking about Metroid Prime 4 because I really care about this game, and I want to be one of the lead people talking about this game as we kind of wait for it to come out and lead up to its release.
Right.
But if you go back and you listen to what I've been saying lately, I've always been hesitant to fully buy into the idea that Metroid Prime 4 would be in this Direct. I've wanted it to be there. I thought there was a great chance it could be there, but it really just came down to what Nintendo's plan is, which we don't know what that plan is. But now I think we have a better idea of what that is. And what that is something more closely tied to Nintendo Switch 2. I put out a video. It was the first video I put out after the Direct, the day of the Direct. And the whole video was about saying that I'm fully committed to the idea that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a cross-gen title.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning it comes out for both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 on the same day. I'm not saying that I think Metroid Prime 4 will come out on the same day, the first day of Nintendo Switch 2, like as a launch title, but I do believe it'll be launch window. That's what I currently think.
Yeah, I 100% believe the reason that they didn't show it here is because this is going to be one of their big, like, reasons to be hyped for Switch 2. So it's going to be probably announced towards the, like, right when they start kickstarting all the market off for Switch 2.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the most sense, because if we're operating on the assumption Switch 2 is coming out at some point in 2024, and it's always possible that we could be wrong on that. So obviously, you take everything with a grain of salt. But
of course,
given that Video Games Chronicle has reported it, given that Eurogamer has reported it, given that Nate the Hate has corroborated these stories as well.
I mean, Eurogamer is huge because they leaked the original Switch in great detail.
Exactly. Eurogamer is the one that told us about the initial Switch. there's other sites as well, Universe and Nintendo, who has had a very strong track record with everything else. Like all the Nintendo Directs, their reporting has been spot on, and they've also talked about a lot of the Switch 2 stuff. Even today, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I don't know why we're talking about it today, because this information came out during the Activision Microsoft dealings, that whole legal battle between Sony and Microsoft, like all that stuff. Like this came out then, but it's resurfaced, and it shows that Activision and Nintendo have been discussing next generation Switch since the holidays of 2022. And we've gotten multiple reports about dev kits out now. And then we have the tech demos we've heard about from Gamescom. Point is, there's a decent amount of reason to suggest that Switch 2 is coming out next year. So with that in mind, Nintendo not showing off Prime 4 in this Direct, to me, that really strongly suggests that Prime 4 is coming out. If not, either A, it's like coming out after, like way at like 2025 or beyond, but at the earliest, it's coming out 2024, and Switch 2 is coming out in 2024 from what we believe. Like, I think we're past the stage of Prime 4 coming out before Switch 2 is the main point here. By them not talking about it all here.
Sorry, but if it was going to be like a first half title, they would have shown it. They would have shown it off. They would have been like, there's a lot of people, and we'll get to this more when we talk about the Direct in general, but there's a lot of people who think, wasn't enough variety in the announcements, too much Mario stuff, and I get it. And Prime 4 would have been if they had that to show off the first half of next year, why not? That would have really helped bring the Direct up for a lot of people.
Yeah, like, I guess, is it possible that Nintendo could have a February Direct? They announced Prime 4, and it has like a 3 to 4 month window, and it comes out in June or something. Yeah, that's possible, but I feel like that's fairly unlikely. I don't really expect that. I think the most likely situation here is that Prime 4 is being saved for some time during the Switch 2 era. That all said, really, all that tells us is that Prime 4 is probably not coming out in the first 6 months of 2024. Probably not. Well, is it possible Nintendo has like an early event for Switch 2 next year? Maybe, right? But I don't think we're like 3 to 6 months away. I think we're a little bit further out. So with that in mind, like getting back to the question, when are we getting Metroid Prime 4? So many sources believe Prime 4 is coming out in 2024. I've told you guys before that I've heard the game has been in a near complete state for a while already. It's since earlier this year. So really, I feel like Prime 4 is kind of positioned to come out in the second half of 2024. When in the second half of 2024, there's definitely a lot of wiggle room there. But
October sounds good.
Yeah, October could be the date. October is a fantastic time. That's when they released Dread in 2021. So, maybe then. If I double check, I think Prime 1 came out November or October, Prime 2 and 3. Like, that's when they tend to... But, let's just double check those.
Yeah, Metroid's not really a horror game or anything, but it's a spookier, moodier tone that I feel fits October really well.
So, Metroid Prime 1 initially came out November 18th, 2002. Metroid Prime 2, obviously back then it's different, but Metroid Prime 2 came out November 15th, 2004. And what all this really tells us is kind of how Nintendo maybe envisions the game a little bit. Metroid Prime 3, August 2007. So that's kind of like, it's still second half though. Let's look at Prime Trilogy, which is definitely a different situation. I want to say it's an early...
it's all a different situation. It's a very different Nintendo.
Prime Trilogy came out August 2009. So... I'm just saying, like, we tend to see Metroid games in the second half. Obviously, those are years ago. When did other M come out? Like, I'm just looking at other Metroid game releases now. Like,
well, when did Samus? Let's go a little closer. Like, when did Samus Returns come out?
I'll tell you in a moment. By the way, other M.
I think it was August.
Other M came out in August. Let's look at Samus Returns. I think
it's also August.
I think you're wrong, but we're gonna find out right now. You are wrong. Sorry, but not by much. September.
Okay.
Metroid Prime Samus.
I remember being really close to E3.
So, but I think what we're seeing here, Metroid Prime Federation Force, 2016, August.
If Switch was out by August, I would be saying August, but I don't think Switch 2 would be out by then. But maybe.
So, but like every single Metroid game we've looked up, even the ones that are more in recent times, Metroid Dread October 2021. I think, you know,
I mean, it's all second half, but
they're all second half. The only exception is Prime Remastered, which was Shadow Drop with no marketing
Yeah.
in February, but it
That's
was
a
rumored for the
remaster.
holiday prior. It was supposedly, according to Jeff Grubb, it was supposed to come out in the holidays of last year. So maybe
It's also
something
not a
happened
new
behind the
game.
scenes. It's not a new game. Anyways, all of this is just, you know, the history, right? Plans change, circumstances change. That all said, I do think it kind of strengthens my belief that it's definitely a second half of 2024 release. And I think Nintendo's definitely kind of planning it in some way around Switch 2. Otherwise, I think they would have showed it off already. Because, as you said earlier, Brandon, like there's just a lot of Mario stuff right now, and the Mario stuff is great. But if there's one thing that's kind of hurting Nintendo, and in the reality situation is it's not really hurting Nintendo, it's just leading to some negative discussion right now. It's just that there's a lack of variety, right? It's mostly Mario Universe stuff, and that Mario Universe stuff is varied, but you know,
and it's very good Mario Universe stuff. It's stuff that I've been looking. I know a lot of big Nintendo fans. Like, I'm not big on Super Mario RPG because I never played it, but I know that's like a Mother 3 level announcement for a lot of people. And Thousand Year Door remake, that's like Mother 3 announcement. Like, imagine if either of those were placed for Mother 3. I think the general reaction would be like way bigger, and yet people are like so down on these. Then again, Mario RPG, like we already seen that, but Thousand Year Door we hadn't seen before.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold off on my, because we're gonna get to that during the topics.
Yeah, we should wait for the topic.
This is kind of becoming like the unofficial Metroid topic, because there's more Metroid questions to get to. But something I wanted to say earlier, basically just to kind of give you a set answer instinct, we think sometime in the second half, and it seems like maybe August to October is kind of the real sweet spot. So like maybe that's like a 3-month window. We'll see if we're right on that. Do you agree with that window, Brandon?
Say that again. I was reading some comment.
Prime 4, sometime between August and October of next year.
Yeah.
That those 3 months, August, September, October.
Yep.
Okay, cool. But something I want to get to, that I was going to address earlier is just, while I expect Prime 4 to be a cross-gen title at this point, I'm going to play devil's advocate and consider the possibility. It's not a good possibility. I'm just going to say it. The possibility that Prime 4 is actually a Switch 2 exclusive. I don't like this idea.
I mean, it's a better idea than it being original Switch exclusive.
There's considerations, right? But the reason I don't like the idea is because Nintendo initially promised Prime 4 to Switch owners back in 2017.
Yeah.
And they still have it listed as a Switch title during their fiscal earnings. And
they've been continuously promising this game every year, technically, in their fiscal earnings.
Exactly. So you have that, and go back to E3 2021, they told us development was going well. I just think that it would, from that perspective, from like a relationship from company to consumer perspective, it would be showing not good faith. So I don't like it from that angle. However, you kind of alluded to this earlier, Brandon. It would at least be a better situation than just being a Switch 1 title, because it being on Switch 2, it could fully utilize and take advantage of the system's abilities and just be one of the most impressive Nintendo games we've ever seen.
The sales potential of it, just as like a sort of, because obviously it's going to be an amazing game and it's going to be much more than this, but just as a tech demo of sorts for the Switch 2, that alone will interest people in buying it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the closer to release it comes out, probably the better, because there'll be a lot less games coming out that time.
Now, you and I both think it's going to be cross-gen. I think that's probably the most likely scenario.
I think that's the most likely and the best scenario for the game.
Yeah, because I mean, it's reaching. Yeah, exactly. It's the more availability, the better. Yeah, right? That's more opportunity.
And I think it has a bigger audience on Switch 2 than it does on the original Switch. Just with it being like not as many exclusive games and it being a showcase for that system will help it a lot. I think the markability of it will be higher on that system than on the original Switch. For people who aren't hardcore Nintendo fans, right?
I think that it has the evergreen potential on a Switch 2. We look at a lot of titles that released back in 2017. A lot of those titles have gone on to become the best-selling in their respective series. Xenoblade, Mario Rabbids, 3D Mario with Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart, Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2 even. They all have continued to sell throughout the Switch generation, and part of that's because they came out in that first year, and they're in some ways like when someone buys a Switch, they're like, oh, those are the games I have to get. Nintendo may want people to kind of think of Prime 4 as one of those launch window titles.
Yeah.
So when people buy Switch 2, like, oh, I should get Prime 4. So that may indeed be part of it. But another angle to consider here is from what we've heard of the tech demos from Gamescom. If there is a cross-gen version, unlike prior cross-gen games Nintendo has done, this may see more of a significant leap from a visual perspective. Because with DLSS and just how easy it is to get games looking and running a lot better, we could see whatever resolution it's running on base Switch, it could be pushed to potentially 4K via upscaling, and also have ray tracing. And those things together will make a big difference. So and then, with faster loading, maybe if the worlds are big, less pop in, better draw distance.
I am hesitant
that can make a big difference.
Promise ray tracing in cross-gen games, especially just because that's something you have to go in and add as an extra engine feature. Sure. And they may not have it ready for the version of the engine that's Prime 4 is being built on, considering they've been working on that game for so long. I would be skeptical on them. I mean, maybe they did take the time, though. Maybe they were like, okay, we're finished with the game. We're going to take the time to put in these extra features for Switch 2. But it would have to be like, okay, we're going to take an extra year of development time to add these features into this engine and then actually add them into the game. Like, it would be a significant undertaking for that version.
I understand what you're saying. And that's what I think is happening.
I would be totally down for that, and it's possible. I'm just saying, it's not like an easy thing that can go, just add ray tracing.
Yeah, it's kind of like the backwards compatibility question, right? Like, doing backwards compatibility isn't easy. It's an undertaking, right? So that it would come down to just Nintendo think it's worth that undertaking, and we consider the points we're talking about now, how if Nintendo wants to say Prime 4 is a cross-gen title, if they want it to be a showcase for the system, if they want to factor into the marketing, they want it to be evergreen, to be kind of considered a valuable Switch 2 game, then maybe it taking advantage of the Switch 2 features that are heavily DLSS, prioritized, then maybe they should, right? If ray tracing is a big part of that, maybe they should. And as I've said earlier, right, we've heard the game's been nearly complete for a while. And if it's not coming out to the second half of 2024, and if also Nintendo has not shown it off yet, even though they could, I think to me that says they have had a plan in mind for a while already, and that maybe they have been working on a Switch 2 version for an extended period of time. So maybe that's the optimist in me, but I am kind of thinking it'll have ray tracing. We'll see, though.
It'd be nice. I'm just not going to expect it. I'd be extremely happy if it happens. I'm just not going to expect it. Now, the 3D Mario, I think, has a much more likely chance of having ray tracing.
I think that's going to be a Switch 2 exclusive.
Yeah, it would be exclusive built to take advantage of the Switch 2's features. So I would be surprised if that one didn't have ray tracing, assuming that the Switch 2 has, because the Switch 2 can do ray tracing doesn't mean that it's going to be used in every single game. Yeah. So we have yet to see.
I guess the reason actual ray tracing ability. So for those that don't know, ray tracing is like advanced lighting effects. Brandon, maybe you could explain it a little bit better.
Let's just say advanced lighting effects. I can't come up with a simpler way to describe it.
I talk about it in some of the Switch 2 graphics videos. So if you watch those, you'll see a comparison, and you'll see these are NVIDIA videos. You'll see it without DLSS, and then DLSS is on, and then all of a sudden, you'll see reflections on mirrors. You'll see the floor looks more colorful because of light reflecting off of it. There's a lot more lighting effects that are going on that add a lot more vibrance and just more of a realistic world. It does
clarify, that's ray tracing, not DLSS, which is what you said.
Well,
I don't think that's what you meant to say.
Well, the point. So it gets confusing because DLSS 3.5 offers ray tracing upscaling, right? So it makes it better.
It upscales ray tracing.
Yeah, so that's
but it doesn't actually do
there.
any of the ray tracing.
Anyway, point is, it makes it look really good. It makes the games look really good. It's a pretty button, essentially.
It does a lot of things, and it's not just for like photorealistic games. It can be for any style can benefit from the accuracy of ray tracing.
Yeah,
you can even do ray tracing for sound and audio, because sound works pretty similar. So you can, instead of projecting sound waves, you project like these rays that would act like sound waves, and they bounce around the room like sound waves would. So you get like realistic audio environments.
That's crazy. So let's move on a little bit. I have a super chat here from King Golden Boy. Thank you very much for the super chat. King Golden Boy says, "Hey Andres, great work on the channel. Thank you. How big do you see Prime 4 being? For me, it's seeming potentially one of Nintendo's biggest games." So I am one of the strong Metroid defenders.
We talking sales, we talking gameplay.
I mean, there's definitely angles to this, right? My perspective is that Prime. You know what? I'm very high on this. I'm very high on this game. I am one of the few people who thinks, and I understand that I'm in the minority here. I am in the minority here. So please, I don't know what's going to happen, but I honestly think Metroid Prime 4 has a shot to be a 10+ million seller. Now, I know that's a huge number for the Metroid series, given that the best selling is just past 3 million recently, and that's Dread. But the reason I feel that way is because I do think Nintendo is trying to position Prime 4 as a big Switch 2 title while still coming out on Switch. And the idea is that it won't hit it immediately. It'll grow over time. So that's kind of my perspective on it. But even if it doesn't hit that number, I do believe that it's absolutely going to be the best-selling Metroid game to date. I do think
it will have good sales immediately on Switch too, because there's not going to be a ton of exclusive competition from Nintendo in terms of Switch 2 games. So people looking to pick up something that really showcases their game, you're probably going to have 3D Mario and Metroid as like the two big games for the holiday season, and then you'll have a couple other things, but those are probably going to be the two biggest ones.
Sure.
So that will really help it to sell. Quickly too. And over time.
So do you think, Brandon, that it would get to 10 million? Like, if you could throw a number out there, like, what do you think Prime 4 will get to? I know 10 is high. Like, I'm considering like a best case scenario kind of thing. Like, I understand I'm being extremely optimistic.
I think it'll be at 3 to 5 million by the end of the holiday.
I think that would be a really good start. So it would really come down to, does it have that evergreen status where it continues to sell for years to come? And obviously we won't know until years from now. That said, sales aside, like if we're just talking about like quality, like I think Prime 4 is going to be one of the best games that they've made in a long time. I think that, well, I mean, you just look at the development, right? Like they openly admitted to restarting development. One, given that we know they've put a lot of money into this, we've seen them continually hire and hire and hire different people, a lot of AAA talent from other Western developers. Like, it's not like just cheap hires. Like, they are hiring a lot of talent, and they've put years into this. And we've heard from Xbox era that the game has big and vast areas and is visually unbelievable. Those are the things that have been said about this game from behind the scenes, according to Xbox era. It's been compared to Halo Infinite. Like, if we're hearing things like this, I think it is big. And I've made this point before several times, but Nintendo, when they announced the restart to Prime 4 back in January 2019, they put it out in a video on their YouTube channel. The only time Nintendo has done that for a game delay is for Breath of the Wild. So I think that kind of goes to show the ambition they have for this title. So I have high expectations for this game. I think it's a big deal. I do think it's going to be one of Nintendo's biggest games. It may not be as big as 3D Mario, but I mean, I think it's going to be a bigger deal for the Metroid series, and I think that's really important. Got another super chat here. Let's see. Jorge FT, thank you for the super chat. New 3D Mario, the next Mario Kart, Metroid Prime 4 cross-gen, and some unique new IPs, i.e. ARMS, Snipper Clips, aren't bad for launch window first party.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if Mario
sure.
Party or Mario Kart, will be there for launch, but within the first year, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next Mario Kart is, I think it's a 2025 title.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the news of Mario Kart Tour ending and the Booster Course Pass ending, like there's gonna be a little bit of a lapse, but it's kind of like the calm before the storm that a new Mario Kart's around the corner.
What I mean by its first year is, I mean the first 12 months of it being released, like that. Like we can go into 2025. Right?
Maybe summer 2025 then.
Yeah, something like that. Could definitely be.
Yeah. I definitely agree that they want it out really early. Like you look at the sales from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Oh yeah.
It came out in the second month of Switch, and it's been selling like hotcakes the entire time, even now. They want it out really early. And if anything, you know, just thinking from that perspective, I'm almost talking myself into thinking that maybe Mario Kart could be like a, you know, actual launch window. Maybe it comes out within the first 6 months. I'm not sure, but I am very confident that at the latest it comes out by the end of 2025, at the latest. But I think there's a lot of reason to think it comes out sooner, as Brandon suggested. Also, I think Pokemon, by the way, it'll come out for Switch, but I think there's a good Pokemon game coming out next year, so that's something else to consider.
A good Pokemon game, is that possible?
Pokemon Legends is good. All right, we'll agree, disagree there.
I'm just joshing.
Actually, you didn't even play it. You didn't even play it.
I'm just joshing.
You didn't even play Legends Arceus is great.
I didn't play it. Yeah, I would hesitate to say that. I mean, in terms of gameplay, it might very well be great.
Listen, we could argue quality, performance, all of that, but fact of the matter is, a lot of people buy Pokemon.
That is true. A lot of people do a lot of dumb things, Andres. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm not
there you
kidding.
go, Brandon.
Just kidding.
Just insulting the masses.
I'm just kidding, guys.
All right.
I only hate some of you.
All right, I'm moving on. Samuel Talks About Games has renewed their membership, a member for 8 straight months. Thank you for sticking around, Sam. It's really appreciated. Glad to have you here. Sam says, do you foresee a scenario where Switch 2 launches anytime earlier in the second half of 2024?
At this point, very low chances of that. Well, I mean, would define actually maybe a little bit earlier, but
I don't expect it to come out earlier in the second half. Like, I don't expect it to. But
I could see it coming at the second half.
Well, I mean, the question is, can we foresee a scenario, right? Like, I don't predict that Switch 2 comes out in the first half of 2024. I predict it comes out in the second half. But I will acknowledge that the Eurogamer report, they pointed out that, you know, it's been reported it's supposed to come in the second half of 2024. But recently, Eurogamer has put out information saying that Nintendo is keen to get it out even sooner if possible.
Yep. If you've seen the graphics comparison from today, you would also seen that clip. I put it in there.
You highlighted it. Both points. Yeah. So I guess do I foresee a scenario? I guess where I stand is I think Nintendo is probably going to price drop the Switch family either shortly before or shortly after the announcement of Switch 2.
I think it'll be after.
But like close, you know what I mean? And I think that if that's the case, I don't expect that to happen this year because Nintendo's already announced a number of holiday bundles. You know, a lot of pre-orders have already gone in. I don't think I don't think a price drop happens this year.
Yeah, I don't think they can announce it this year because I think they would need to do a price drop so their sales don't decrease, and they're not going to do that this year with the bundles already announced. I'm sure they already have all their Black Friday marketing like ready to go.
Yeah. Now, I have entertained the possibility of something happening after Black Friday, so say the Game Awards, which would be like a week into December, if I'm not mistaken. So like a lot of the holiday sales have already happened. and I think it's conceivable they can maybe tease something. So Xbox Series X, I think, was announced at the Game Awards not too long ago. So there is precedent for a big company to announce new
Was it
hardware.
announced though? I know that they talked about it, but
they had the trailer. They revealed the box and the name.
They revealed the box and the name at the Game Awards.
They did.
Are you sure?
Or at least they revealed the box. I have to double.
Because I know that they showed a trailer at the Game Awards, which included the box, but
yes, that part is true.
Thought they showed the box off like earlier in the year. I don't remember.
I have to double check that, but they made a significant.
But we did know about the console before that trailer. That I know for a fact.
Yeah. Anyways, we're just considering possibilities here. I think the most.
I think if it was at the Game Awards, we would already have to know about it. Like they wouldn't just be like the announcement of the fact that there's a Switch 2. I don't think would happen at the Game Awards.
Yeah. No. I stand by the. I've said this before. I think the Switch 2 is getting announced this March. At the latest, but also maybe at the earliest. I just think it's March. I think it's March because it's right before the end of the fiscal year. It's right in time for the fiscal earnings report to satisfy the investors. It's also going to be. What's interesting about it is that we've heard from the Gamescom stuff that March is like a big time for Switch 2 apparently, and I don't think it's coming out then. So I think that's when it's revealed, or when they have a big event for it. So I'm not saying it's impossible Switch 2 can't come out in this first half, but I just think it's unlikely.
I think if it comes out the first half, it would have to be like barely in the first half, like June.
Yeah, they would have to have a really short announcement to release window.
Yeah, it's March. Because March would probably be halfway through March when they announce it at the earliest.
I mean, could they seriously do a 3-month window?
Switch April, was 6. May. Yeah, it'd be just about 3 months.
Or maybe
halfway through March, you
launch
halfway through June.
5.5.
It was like it was about 6 months though.
I think they could have a slightly shorter interval for Switch 2 because Switch is well established, and if it's an iterative system. I mean, it's conceivable.
It seems really close, though.
Again, we just think it's unlikely, but it's not impossible.
And that would be the earliest, I think, would be June.
Yeah.
Just barely first half.
You guys aren't going to let us get into the topics, are you? Because I keep seeing more super chats. All right, so we'll get to the super chat. I'll check a comment, a couple chats, and then we'll actually get into the topics. So Taker610, thank you for the super chat. I think Nintendo will announce the new system before next February's Direct, so they can start talking about games slated for 2024 at that time. So it's interesting. I think that's an interesting perspective because I've been kind of speculating recently that the General Direct we just got last week is the last General Direct that's just for Nintendo Switch. Which would suggest I disagree with your perspective here, but sort of. What I'm thinking, and obviously I could be wrong, but what I'm thinking is that maybe we get like a Direct Mini in the early part of next year, shortly before Nintendo announces their big Direct presentation. So what the Direct Mini does is that it's just it gives us a few more dates for a few more titles to kind of fill up the first half. But Nintendo says, hey, we have a big Switch 2 event coming soon. We're going to announce and give more details on that. And then we'll know, right? We'll know, and this will be close to around the time of the Direct Mini. And then maybe we have that big Switch 2 event in March. And that'll kind of function as like a big Direct. That in conjunction with the Direct Mini, I think that is what'll happen. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I think they will do a Direct beforehand to talk about the games leading up to Switch 2. So they can fill out that lineup like in between now and Switch 2. But it will probably be a mini because they're not going to probably announce a ton of new big titles. It's probably going to be smaller stuff to fill out like summer. And then they'll wait for Switch 2 to really talk about their big holiday games. Like, I think we'll know a lot less about the holiday in February than we usually do. Like, basically almost nothing.
I mean, something to note is that Nintendo does have a lot of contractual agreements, right? So for through third party, so that's why they gotta have like some kind
but
of direct...
if their third parties are mostly gonna be focused on Switch 2 next year, they're gonna want to wait too.
It depends though, because I mean, we've seen a lot of smaller titles. Like we don't see a lot of big AAA games on Switch.
Those can all be in a Direct Mini though. Yeah,
maybe that or a partner showcase or something. So. Yeah, I'm I'm currently not. I'm prepared for us to not get a general direct in February. There will be Nintendo news. It just may come in different forms, but we'll see. All right, so I'm just gonna check a few chats here, and then we're gonna move into the actual topics. So let's see here. Dash frame. Did you see the different colored button theory? I have. I've actually talked about it in 2 different videos already. It was talked about in today's video in the Paper Mario graphics comparison, and also talked about in the Switch 2 video that I released on Friday. So I've talked about it twice.
Really showing that you're not a fan. Can't believe it. Watch more videos.
Not everyone watches every video. It's totally fine. But yes, I have seen it. And we'll talk more about it in this podcast when we get to Paper Mario. Let's see here. Jean-Carlo Adamy, don't you find wrong Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door is not dated? Why didn't they give a date for the game? What's that supposed to mean?
It's probably just later in the year.
Yeah, they just said 2024. I think it means it's probably not coming on the first half. I agree with that. This does potentially tie into the button color theory.
Yep.
And how it may mean that Paper Mario Thousand Year Door will fit into the launch window of Switch 2. I gotta tell you, I love the idea of Switch 2 coming out summertime, like June or something, just because there's more time to put in different games. But I'm gonna wait for more evidence before I really buy into it coming out that soon.
I want it to launch as soon as possible so we get as many games on it.
Yeah.
I don't want to play more games on Switch 1. I want to play the Switch 2 versions.
Yeah, exactly. Connor added me. Hi, Andres Restart. How are you doing today? I'm doing okay. Say, I got a question. Do you think... Let me hide this because it's confusing. All right. Do you think Nintendo will get a remake Tamagotchi Life on Switch since they did a remake of Miitopia?
Ooh, I would like that a lot. When's that Fantasy Life game coming out? Is that already out? I don't know.
I haven't been following either of these theories, so I can't really...
Fantasy Life I haven't been following. Well, Fantasy Life's not a theory, it's an actual announcement.
I understand. Fantasy Life what?
I don't know.
The video game.
It's not called 2. It's Fantasy Life something.
Fantasy Life Switch release date. The game will be released in 2023. It'll be available worldwide on Nintendo Switch. Sapphire, Country Creator Arts, all these are titles.
So we don't know. Maybe it got
Fantasy Life. The Girl Who Steals Time. Is that what we're talking about?
I guess it's just whatever is going on Switch. I don't remember the title.
For Nintendo Switch.
Well, then, yeah.
It just has a release date for 2023. It's not specified yet.
It may get delayed next year.
Yeah, there's a good chance.
I'm looking forward to it though. That's another 3DS kind of. It's not a remake though, but it's a sequel to a 3DS game.
Yeah, but what about Tamagotchi Life?
I mean, I would like a sequel, to be honest.
I don't see why it wouldn't eventually come. It seems like, yesterday put a video talking about different remasters that we're likely getting. This is something easily remastered, or they don't even have to. It could be a brand new game. Like this is not
Tamagotchi Life 2.
It doesn't require like a large development team. Could easily see it. Yeah, I wouldn't lose hope on this. I don't know when they'll announce it, but I think, given this is something I guess we could talk a little bit about it now. But basically, I think that based off of how the Direct has gone, to me, I feel like we're definitely seeing kind of like 3DS levels of support for the Switch right now. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I do not. Let me stress, I do not mean that in a bad way. It's just a circle of life, right? Like every stage of life is beautiful. So, what I'm getting at here is if you look at the last 3 years of 3DS, 2016 to 2019, it was mostly Pokemon, Yokai Watch, and a lot of remasters, demakes, and enhanced ports. Like that's kind of what it was. And you look at what we've gone with the Nintendo Direct. You just look at the confirmed games for 2024. January. It's a remaster collection of another code, quality stuff. We get a remake of a Game Boy Advance game. in Mario vs. Donkey Kong. March is a brand new game in Princess Peach Showtime. But then we also know about 2 more games in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and a remake of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. 80% of the Nintendo published titles that have a slated date for 2024 are some form of a remaster remake.
Yeah.
That's not. I am excited for actually every single one of those 5 games. Even another Code, which I didn't play. I've been warming up to it. Like, I think I'm gonna get that in January. Like, I think that's a solid lineup.
I know I'm getting Thousand Year Door.
To play.
There's no way I'm not getting that. That's like that's my most hyped game of 2024 at the moment.
Yeah.
That's actually announced. 3D Mario, if that gets announced, that will be a little bit higher. But this is like, I've been waiting for this game for so long. So.
Oh, me too. The more and more I talk about Thousand Year Door, the more excited I get for it. And I'm looking forward to when we talk about it soon, because there's a lot I want to kind of get to with this. But my main point, though, is that the 3DS was supported 2 years into Switch with a lot of these kinds of games. The games that we're seeing for Switch now, I think we're going to continue to see for at least another year, maybe 2. And what that means is there's a lot of entries, maybe like a Tamagotchi Life Remaster, maybe like an F-Zero GX, maybe like a Fire Emblem Genealogy War. Like, there's a lot of different kinds of games that can come to Switch that are going to be really quality releases, but are also easier to do than, say, a ground-up new Fire Emblem game, a ground-up new Legend of Zelda game. And it's not me saying that they're bad. They're not bad. They just don't require as much development time and effort, and they can dedicate more of their resources to next generation products by doing these now. It affords them to give us good games to play as opposed to having nothing, which is how Nintendo used to do it years ago. And so this is way better. And if you look at Nintendo's release schedule compared to Sony and Microsoft, they destroy them. There are times when Sony and Microsoft can compete, especially Sony, but Nintendo continues to release quality games almost every single month, every single year. So
that's why people buy Nintendo. Yeah.
Again, I am not saying it's bad. I know someone in the comments, someone in the chat's going to be like, oh, how dare you say that these are low effort ports. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that this is a transitional phase. Because it's true.
I mean, I've been saying that about the third parties too, and it's been ringing very true. Is that I've been saying those kind of things like Doom Eternal and Mortal Kombat 11 and Witcher 3, we're not going to be seeing a lot of those at the end of the Switch's life, because those kind of games, all the developments move to Switch 2. Why would they take a ton of time to basically demake a version of a game for Switch when in a few months they can make an actual full port on the Switch 2? That's just not going to happen, and we're not seeing that happen.
I think this is funny. Let's see here. Oh, the chat is moving on.
The chat's being facetious.
So Riondor, wait, are you saying the ports are bad quality?
Exactly. That's what we're saying.
Exactly. No, don't clip me and say, see? Told you. I knew
it. Got him.
Just you wait till we start talking about
COD in 4K.
Like, what Brandon and I have to say about Thousand Year Door is the absolute opposite of low effort.
Oh, bro. I haven't been hyped for the game this much in a while.
It is hype. It's hype. Yeah. Like, I think some people are perhaps missing just how amazing Thousand Year Door is, and I understand why to some extent. We'll get to that. I mean, actually, I think now is a good time to get to it. Did I miss anything? I think there was another one more super chat, and then we're just moving on to the next topic. All right, so Attack the Backlog, thank you for the super chat. Bring on the Super Switch. I hope you're well, man. Awesome podcast. What form of any do you think the Switch 2 VR will take? Hit that like, peeps. Yes, please like the stream, but very helpful.
You know what we saw recently? Resident Evil 4 Remake is getting a PlayStation VR 2 version of that game, which looks absolutely insane. So if Nintendo does VR, it has any kind of good capabilities, could we see Resident Evil 4 Remake also come to Switch 2 VR? That would be nice. I would like it. Nintendo, please invest more in VR.
I'm gonna be the negative Nancy and say that I don't think, I'm not saying VR will never happen, I don't know about Switch 2 launching with VR though.
Launching,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, even PlayStation 5 didn't launch with VR. It will
Yeah.
probably be something that comes later.
But
I do
also
think they'll do something with it.
I mean, with the Switch 2 being more powerful and having potentially a bigger, higher res screen, the rumors are it's an 8-inch screen. I think that opens the door for them to do more, right? With
And
the
it's
advancement of
1080p
technology.
screen too.
I mean, yeah. So like, you look at I'm just assuming we don't know what resolution the screen will be. It
Right.
might still be 720. It might be higher than 1080p. Like we don't know.
Doubtful.
Yeah,
but possible.
I agree.
It would only be for like the VR mode if they did that.
Yeah, that's why I even suggested it as a small possibility. But I mean, if the Switch can pull off some level of like cheap VR, the Switch 2 can absolutely pull off something even better.
Yeah.
So
a lot better.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it at launch, right? If I'm gonna guess, I would bet that we will get a port of Resident Evil 4 Remake, and just having that game as for a portable system, like let's just remind ourselves that a lot of third-party companies want to get their big games onto Switch because it's portable. A portable version that plays as it should is fantastic. So getting it out on Switch 2 is absolutely valuable. And then maybe a year or so down the road, if Nintendo introduces a VR setup, they can port that later or 2 years later. Like third parties have no problem porting games to Switch a year or 2, 3 years down the road. So I could easily see Capcom doing that for Resident Evil. Port the game over to Switch 2 to give it more life, and then a year or two later, port it again with VR. Like, totally. I think it's very possible.
This makes me very excited, actually. Because if anybody can make VR work, it's Nintendo. Because the biggest issue with VR is dedicated game support from like AAA companies. So if Nintendo actually got into VR and started making like big games for it, like they could make experiences that actually like make people be like, I have to play this. I can only really experience it fully in VR, and there's a good VR setup. Like I think Nintendo could actually make VR like mainstream. Especially if you don't have to buy a separate headset, if it just works with the Switch. I think if they offered a separate headset for like better, higher end users who want like a nicer experience, that could do well as well, if they offer the software to back it up. But the fact that they could have a decent enough experience with just your Switch, you don't have to buy any new hardware, they could make VR so much more mainstream, and they could really do something big with it. And I love VR. The problem is there's just not enough developers in VR making must-have games with actual recognizable IPs.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I already see the Switch probably being $400. So any kind of tech they would have to include day one for it to be VR compatible out of the box, it just seems really unrealistic to me. But can they introduce a VR bundle down the road?
Well, yeah, I think this would have
$50 to $100.
You probably have to buy some kind of like headset thing that fits over the Switch. So this wouldn't be something you could necessarily do in the box, but you could buy like a cheap peripheral that would make it work. The point is, you wouldn't have to buy a separate like full headset that's like $300.
You wouldn't need something that has like a lot of internal stuff. Maybe
you would just need like something that's like $30 to $50, just like an accessory that you put over your Switch.
Maybe
kind of like Labo, but like nicer, not made of cardboard.
Maybe
that's all you would need.
Yeah,
they can release a separate headset later if they want to for higher end users, but out of the box with a simple accessory, I think that would work. I mean, that's just already how the Switch VR works, so why not do that with Switch 2 at higher fidelity?
Yeah, I'll tell you that I love the idea of playing Prime 4 with VR.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. All right, so let's jump into our first actual topic. So let's see here. I can't find the topics. Oh, there we go. All right. So let's just get into the direct stuff. There's a lot to talk about.
In fact, we're going to do this the opposite direct way, but this makes sense. We're already talking about direct stuff, so it makes sense.
That's why I felt like it made more sense to just jump into Nintendo Direct stuff, although it's been back and forth. So either I could have gone in either direction. I picked Nintendo Direct, so here we are. We'll talk about the Switch 2 details after this one.
They announced Fallout in the Nintendo Direct? Whoa.
Yep, that's what that means. Yep. No. So as I kind of brought up earlier, right, there's been a certain level of negativity that has come out of the Nintendo Direct. I mean, I want to talk about that and just the Direct as a whole.
Yeah.
So, you know, we kind of been tiptoeing around this topic, right? Because I was kind of talking about how like we got a lot of remasters and remakes announced, and you know, one of them included Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and I see a lot of people refer to this as a remaster. I know it's a bit of a blurred line situation with what's a remaster and a remake, but if you look at our graphics comparison today, I think it's Brandon and I made it very apparent how much of an improvement this game is over the original. Like, it's a different game.
Yeah, they didn't just update the assets. They made whole new assets.
This is a new art style.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the graphics, it's very clear that they re-arted the game. Like, it's a new vision for how the game's going to look.
Yeah. And so I bring that up because I somewhat understand the disappointment for some people, because when we were watching the Direct and I saw like the first moment I didn't realize exactly what it was. I figured it was likely this. And like we've talked about Thousand Year Door coming. Like, you just literally look at the channel, you will see Paper Mario Thousand Year Door on the thumbnail for like several of my videos, because I've been thinking Thousand Year Door will probably be announced.
Somehow this skipped past me. I guess I was busy that day when you uploaded those videos. I don't know.
But I'm not saying I knew it was coming. I simply thought it made sense. I didn't expect it in this Direct though. I thought Nintendo would kind of have a little bit more variety, because we're getting Mario Wonder next month. We're getting Mario RPG in November. We're getting a Wario game this holiday as well. They also announced the Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. We have the Peach game coming out in March. We have the Luigi's Mansion game coming out in the summer. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that's very Mario universe centric. I didn't think they would announce another one before announcing another brand new Nintendo title. And if you ignore Tetris 99, which technically is a brand new Nintendo title, but if you ignore Tetris 99, the only new Nintendo thing that was announced is another Mario Universe title. So when we got to the end of the Direct and that final thing, and I see the little star book, I'm like, oh, it's another Mario thing. There was a little bit of disappointment in me. So I kind of understand where some people are coming from. But at the same time, of all the Mario things they could have shown off to end the Direct,
this is the one, bro. There isn't another. The only other one for me personally that would be on the same level was if they were like, you know, we remade Bowser's Inside Story on the 3DS, but we're giving it a full remake on Switch anyways. That would be the only other one that could be like, because that's an equivalent Mario RPG that I love just as much. But other than that, there's not a Mario thing that exists that I love more than Thousand Year Door.
Yeah, Thousand Year Door. It's a little weird because we're getting Mario RPG in November, and for those that don't know, Paper Mario N64
this killed my hype for that game.
Was initially called Mario RPG 2.
Yep.
Like, so, Thousand Year Door is basically Mario RPG 3. So it's just kind of interesting when you think of that from perspective. It's kind of, so we're getting a remake of Mario RPG in November, and we're getting basically the unofficial Mario RPG 3 remake, like, you know, probably less than a year later. It's very interesting how that's coming to pass. That all said, you know, while I was hoping for something different, Thousand Year Door is, the more and more I look at, the more and more excited I get. So, like, during the graphics comparison, well, as Brandon and I were kind of looking at this, and Brandon noted that this game's running at 30 frames per second, which may be disappointing because
it's the only disappointing part.
Yeah, because the original ran at 60 on GameCube, but the reason is because this game is not an upscale of a GameCube game. This is not a GameCube game. This is running on the Origami King engine. The same. It looks like Origami King. Everything.
Yeah, it looks like the Origami King engine with Thousand Year Door kind of stylings, because it still does look more like Thousand Year Door. Like, I mean, it's pretty apparent when I put in the part of the clips where there he shows Origami King that Origami King is its own style. This is still very stylized to look a lot like Thousand Year Door, but it does show off a lot of the effects. Like a lot of the base like graphical feature set is like pretty much the same as Origami King. The way they handle like water as like the paper effect is very similar. The way they handle lighting is very similar. The material quality is very similar. It probably is the same engine, just with tweaks to make it look more like Thousand Year Door. But I just want to note that's not confirmed.
Yeah. It's
But I mean, the game, it does have some timing with like pressing A and B for like the action commands. But honestly, I don't think it would be that much harder to pull off at 30 FPS. To be honest, it's not like the timings were that hard to pull off anyways. Like, if you know the timings, within like 5 hours of playing the game, you can hit it every single time if you're not a kid. You know, like, as an adult, you can hit that every single time easy, I mean, within a couple hours.
The thing
so
is,
I don't imagine it being super hard.
I mean, Origami King had timing stuff. Like, it's not... Color Splash had timing stuff. I'm assuming Color Splash 60 frames per second?
I doubt it.
I'm assuming it was also 30.
I think that's also using the same engine, basically.
Right. Color Splash.
So I doubt it was 60 if Origami King's 30.
Okay. No. Paper Mario Color Splash. I didn't know there was another Color Splash.
There is.
It doesn't look like it. No, I'm pretty sure it was 30. Because I see a lot of videos of SEMO, like, of it being emulated to 60, which would imply that it improved. Yeah. Same. They're all like on the same engine. I assume it's obviously been slowly improved and iterated upon.
J2 Blue and in the Sky, he points out that Paper Mario 64 was 30 FPS and it didn't really matter. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna really impact gameplay because it's an RPG. Like it'd
be nice
like
to have 60 FPS, game. But maybe on a Switch 2 version. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do want to kind of touch on that. We kind of mentioned this color theory thing. And and also the release timing. Like both of these things are kind of related. I will reference this chat here from DragonChi26 because it's also closely tied to what we're talking about. DragonChi asks, given how much was shown in the Thousand Year Door trailer, how close is it to being finished, do you think? And when do you see it releasing next year? My perspective is that it's I personally feel like that's exactly
they
what
pulled scenes from like pretty close to the end of the game, like throughout all the game pretty much. Like I had to go and find footage from all kinds of parts of the game.
I mean, did you see anything that looked unpolished to you?
No, not really.
It looks pretty
perfect.
Complete to me. Now they only give us a 2024 release timing, which maybe you could kind of spin that to mean that they don't have an exact timing it because they're still in the polishing stages. It's possible that's the case, but I'll also say we've seen a lot of Nintendo games being basically done from way before
the first cross-gen game we've seen for Switch 2.
I think I'm kind of entertaining that idea. I feel like the blanket 2024 release timing. That's obviously not for sure because a lot of Nintendo games announced at a time just have a blanket year timing, and this
could be a game to fill out the summer in between, the announcement of Switch 2 and the release.
Maybe, but I some part of me thinks it is maybe possibly a cross-gen Switch 2 title, like Nintendo might have multiple, just because
I'd be happy.
One, the timing, right? It's a blanket 2024. It's not like a specified. It's not first half of 2024, right? So that kind of sets me off to think maybe. But there's this other interesting thing that's the color button theory. So for those that don't know, let me explain, right? And I didn't discover this. It was actually discovered by Jake from Game Explain. That's when I first saw it. But the basic idea is the button command inputs that we're seeing in Thousand Year Door are actually showcasing Super Nintendo Switch or Switch 2 like button inputs. And what I mean is, if you look at the button inputs in the Thousand Year Door remake, it shows the A button as red, it shows the B button as green. The B button is yellow, and the Y button as green. I don't think we technically see the blue one, but those three match the Super Famicom orientation. A Super Famicom is the Japan version of Super Nintendo, which used the rainbow buttons. It also did the new Nintendo 3DS, and that's the formatting. A for red, yellow for B, green for Y, and blue for X. And so what's interesting about this, given that the Super Famicom was iterative upon the initial Famicom, the Japanese version of the NES, and that the new Nintendo 3DS is iterative upon the 3DS, it may be the case that Nintendo is kind of taking a cue from some of their history and incorporating these rainbow buttons, which, by the way, would also help to better differentiate it from the Switch 1, which makes a lot of sense, because if the Switch 2 is basically a Switch already, just better, they may be thinking of kind of neat ways to kind of differentiate it, and incorporating the colored buttons might be a great way to do it while still maintaining that Nintendo history. So obviously you could just maybe think, oh, they just decided to pick these colors because it's a part of Nintendo history. It doesn't have to mean it's for the system.
They could have picked the GameCube ones. That would have made more sense.
But they because that's how it was in the GameCube. The Thousand Year Door, the button inputs matched the GameCube buttons. And so now there's something completely different. And typically, for most Paper Mario games, they match the system that they're on.
Yeah, and we would have thought either the system or, if they wanted to do something different, go with the original. But to go with something completely different is very odd. Now, one thing I will say is this would be a great way to differentiate a new generation of Joy-Cons, because we do know that they patented a certain, and I saw so many of the comments, it's been so long, I don't remember who it was, but they were asking about like stopping Joy-Con drift on Switch 2, and Nintendo did patent a technology that's very similar to what's called Hall effect sensors in joysticks, which use magnets instead of a friction-based sensor, so they don't wear out and you don't get drift. And that may be something they're putting into the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, considering how many lawsuits they've gotten over the original, and they maybe want to differentiate those with those different colors, so right on the way, as soon as you look at it, that's a Switch 2 Joy-Con with the better joysticks, because they may look very, very similar and they may be compatible with each other.
So it kind of, like, the more we talk about it, sort of makes sense. Like, it helps to differentiate the Joy-Cons, helps to differentiate the Switch itself, going for these colored buttons. And the timing seems to kind of match up, because I feel like, regardless of, if this is true or not, Thousand Year Door having just a 2024 timing, I think that does imply like it's likely close to release of Switch 2 if it's indeed in the second half. So they may have decided to go with that, with matching the Switch 2 color buttons layout, because, well, that's releasing around the same time, and that's interesting. It's very interesting. And I mean, on top of that, I think Thousand Year Door is a fantastic looking game, like, as is. Like, it's very ambitious.
I don't think what they showed is the Switch 2 version of the game.
No.
Like, some people have been speculating that, because it does seem like it's running at 1080p at the most. I couldn't get, because there was a lot of compression, but it looked like it might be actually running slightly lower than 1080p, but it looked like it was a full 1080p. It was hard to tell. But at most, it's running at 1080p. I think it's 1080p, but it could be like a little bit under. It was very compressed.
Yeah, I do think a big selling point for Switch 2 is that a lot of games are going to be at 4K 60. So take Thousand Year Door example for example. A lot of people are upset that it's running at 30 instead of 60, even though the visual engine is completely different from the GameCube version, right? So it is excusable in my eyes, but Switch 2 version 4K 60 seems pretty conceivable because of DLSS tech. So I think that's a big deal.
Or even a 4K 30 1080p 60 mode, I could see that.
Well, yeah, however they, I mean, if that's what's more conceivable or feasible, then yeah, for sure. But outside of Thousand Year Door, Brandon, like, what else about the Direct sort of stuck out for you?
I mean, that Peach game was big, because I really wasn't super interested in it. I was like, I'll keep an eye on it, see what happens, but I thought it was just going to be some, like, for kid game where you just go and you, like, run around as Peach and you change your dress color or something. But no, it's like actually awesome. It looks like kind of a mixture between almost like Luigi's Mansion 3, Kirby's Forgotten Land, and I guess the Super Princess Peach game from the Wii. And it actually seems really ambitious and fun, and something that I will actually want to play. Like, it's not just for like a simple little kids game. It's a serious deal.
Yeah. Once they showed the transformations, like I started to fall in love with Peach Showtime. Like it looks like a fun game with a lot of variety to the gameplay. I think it's going to be very befitting of that March time slot. I'm not saying every March Nintendo puts out like a super big banger, but March typically is filled with some sort of big quality exclusive for Switch. And I think Peach is going to fit that. I'm kind of excited about it. Like, I think this is going to be a good game.
I mean, Kirby launched in March, and this feels like a very similar game to that.
Man, Kirby's Forgotten Land. That's a classic.
Good.
I'm
looking at the game case right now.
It's amazing.
Oh, so beautiful.
It's definitely one of my favorite Switch games.
I still need to finish some of the post-game content for it. Otherwise, I've 100%ed it.
It's so good. You should definitely go for the 100%. It's awesome. Yeah, I definitely, Connor, I'm seeing your chat. Sword Fighter Peach. That
was epic. Karate Peach.
Oh yeah, it looks fun. Even like the Detective Peach thing, like that.
Yeah, that was like a different. That one is where it really felt like Luigi's Mansion.
Well, but that's my main point though. Like, it's not just a straight like brawler or platformer.
Yeah.
Like, there's different kind of things it's doing.
And the Chef Peach feels very much like a mini game, like kind of like food kind of game.
Yeah, and there's also this element of kind of like, maybe this sounds kind of girly, but I mean, it is a Peach game, right? But like, it's kind of like she's playing a little bit of dress up, right? Like, she's trying out different outfits and sort of sporting different looks. Like, that makes sense for Peach, you know?
Yeah.
I think that it makes sense. And I like this, like, it's on a stage and it's a different villain, right? It's not Bowser, like, seemingly. So I like that.
And they're going for this like
different lore.
Because with the Mario movie, they went for that like girl boss Peach kind of vibe, and they're continuing that here in an actual game, which is awesome.
Yeah,
she's not a damsel in distress. She's whooping some butt.
She's the hero. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think we should talk about F-Zero 99 because I think that's a highlight of the direct.
I really want to play it. I'm curious.
Haven't played it yet?
No, bro. I haven't had time to plug my Switch.
That's fair. It's fair. You did say you were working a lot. Yeah, I've played it. I've had a good time with it. I joked around on Twitter that it's the game of the year.
I've heard very good things on Twitter about this game.
A lot of people seem to be joking about it being game of the year because it's very fun.
Yeah,
it's very fun. It's free for Switch Online members, so like if you haven't played it yet, just give it a try. It's free. It's free.
I'm gonna try it as soon as I have time.
Yeah, and it's not lame. It's like it's a really fun game. It's engaging. I don't want to say it's extremely addictive, but it does kind of make you want to keep going at it, kind of like typical 99 games do. And I've just had a good time. Like I'm playing the game and I'm like, man, I can't get first. So I'm kind of like trying to think of different strategies, trying to get better. There are time trials you can do. So I think actually the way I got good at Mario Kart was mastering the tracks in time trials, like challenging the ghosts. And then once I played online or I played multiplayer, I realized I was just doing a lot better. So I probably should do that for F-Zero.
I should do that for Mario Kart.
Get a lot better.
I never did that for Mario Kart.
Oh, I love time trials in Mario Kart. It makes you a better player. It does. But point is, there's a lot of gameplay to enjoy with F-Zero 99. And it's not just one track. Like, I think when we first heard the rumor, I was concerned it would be very basic and stripped down. But this game is filled with a lot of love. Like, there's a lot of like art of F-Zero. The UI is good. The music's good. There's
I was surprised how much content there is.
And
like 16 tracks, isn't there?
There's 15 tracks. Well, not all of them. Yeah, there's 15 tracks. And what's interesting is that more tracks are going to be made available. They have content planned to come out later in September and in October.
This is like a full game. That's what surprised me is how close this is to like a full game. This is actual UI and stuff. I thought this was just going to be boot into F-Zero 99, start a match like Tetris 99.
it's a little bit, there's a little bit more to it. And you know, you'll unlock more colors and decals. Like there's technically only 4 different vehicle types, but with all the customization options, when you're racing, you see the whole bunch of different style of cars.
I'm surprised there's any different vehicle types, to be honest.
Yeah, and I really enjoy the gameplay. Like I think they came up with a really strong formula, introducing the Skyway, the gold cars. Like there's a little bit of a comeback feature, but it's balanced and it feels earned. Unlike Mario Kart, I mean Mario Kart 8, I think they did a better job of balancing it, but in prior Mario Kart games, the rubber banding effect seemed a little unfair. It's not unfair in F-Zero 99. Like when you win, you earned your win, for sure. So I think that they did a really great job, and it encourages combat as well, because if you kill someone, you actually expand your energy meter, and if you're doing a Grand Prix where there's multiple races, that matters a lot. Okay. And just kind of like when you start the race and it's 99 racers opening up the track, like there's a little bit of a scope there, even though it's 16-bit visuals in HD, it actually looks pretty nice. Like it's a cool effect. And seeing how the races from Super Nintendo have been adapted into this, because there are changes to fit the 99 racers,
right?
It's fun. And you know, I really enjoy this. I've been playing it for a long time to come.
Real quick, like because we were wondering if they did 99, like which game they would do, and I was kind of speculating they might do the N64 one. But I'm curious if the reason they did that is just because not that obviously N64 games are hard to run for Switch, but emulation specifically is just extremely expensive compared to actually running games on hardware. And all of this, even the 99 game, I assume is probably done through some sort of emulation of the original game with like added features on. So I wonder if it would have been very expensive to run 100 polygon characters in an N64 emulation. I'm just curious about if that's why they didn't do that, or maybe they just thought it would be harder to see what you were doing. I don't know, but I am curious because I kind of thought it was going to be the N64 one, but it's not. So I'm speculating about why that might be the case. But I could see N64 emulation, as far as I know, is also just really hard to get right in general. So I'm wondering if they just didn't want to mess with that as much.
Well, I mean, F-Zero 99 is a bit of a celebration of the history of the franchise. So I think in some ways it makes sense from that perspective. And also all 99 games are from the earlier era, right? So it fits that motif.
True.
So, you know, I just kind of think they never really even thought about doing the X version. Like, I don't think that was just, you know.
Yeah, that's potentially very true.
And also X visuals aren't like amazing either. So it's not.
No, but it would have been.
Would I have liked it? Yes, I would have liked it. But yeah, I just think that
I prefer X. I think X has the best music in the series.
Oh yeah, music from that's the music.
I prefer the more metal feel than GX.
Yeah, well, the other thing is that theoretically they could do an update where they have like an X. I doubt they will, but you know, there are apparently some planned modes, like a survival mode and things of that nature. So there's more to come with this. But another angle I want to kind of take with this is that while there's been rumors of a GX remaster, and I still think that's coming, I don't think that's been deconfirmed yet. I just think it kind of lengthens our expectation of when it'll come. I think, you know, as we talked about earlier, how it looks like Nintendo plans a lot of remasters and remakes for maybe the next couple of years of Switch. There's a lot of opportunity for those that are kind of like, man, I hope this game gets remastered. I hope that this game gets remade. I think there's a lot of that coming to Switch over the next couple of years from Nintendo. So there's room for optimism for a lot of different entries, including F-Zero GX remastered. So I think, we'll probably get it eventually. And if anything, F-Zero 99, what it does is that it's, given that it's free and it's so fun to play, it's almost infectious. I think it's going to do a great job to kind of build up the F-Zero IP.
Yeah.
And
I think that's
it
exactly
could lead to a more successful F-Zero entry down the road.
And it's looking like they're doing a good job of it. I think they already, you know, this F-Zero GX remaster or whatever they're planning for, if it's not that, whatever they're planning for F-Zero, I think it's already in development, right? I don't think this doing well decides that, but I do think the very good reception of the game does bode well for the series doing well when that game releases. Like, I think that game has potential to sell several million copies.
Yeah, And something else that I want to kind of entertain the idea of, and this doesn't mean for sure, right? So take it with a grain of salt. But we have seen Nintendo do things where they put out certain easier entries for particular series, and it's kind of almost led to almost like a build-up for that particular series. So I think maybe the best example is Pikmin, right? So first they give us Pikmin 3 Deluxe, relatively easy to do, right? And then they have the Pikmin mobile game. They had the Pikmin, the Universal Park, and now we have Pikmin 4, and we don't have hard sales numbers yet, but what we heard was very promising initial sales for Pikmin 4. I kind of expect Pikmin 4 to end up being the best-selling Pikmin game to date, right?
I hope so. It deserves it.
Yeah, so I look at that and I think about maybe what Nintendo's plan is for Metroid. Like they put out Prime Remastered, obviously they have Metroid Dread, and then you look at maybe this F-Zero thing with F-Zero 99, and then also with Donkey Kong, they're putting out Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Maybe the idea is to kind of like bit by bit put out different things to kind of build up some of these IP, and then they come out with the bigger entry a little bit later down the road, and it sees historic success.
Yeah.
As Wilberforce Booster saying in the chat, Pikmin 4 is still leading Japanese sales charts. Kind of wild.
Really? That's great.
That's true. That's crazy. Yeah.
It's great to hear.
Yeah. So, I think that while some people were kind of hoping for a new Donkey Kong game, a new Metroid, a new F-Zero, I think we are in a transitional phase. I think Nintendo's doing what they can to give us consistent quality content. We have a game every month for the first 3 months of 2024. We have a solid holiday lineup and some good games we already know about for Beyond. Like I think the plan is for Nintendo to keep consistent, fun games to play and enjoy, but they are also kind of positioning, let's say, larger development team efforts for when the Switch 2 releases, and that may mean a big GX remaster. That may mean Metroid Prime 4, the new rumored Donkey Kong game. But in the meanwhile, we have things like F-Zero 99, and Mario vs. Donkey Kong. There'll be fun entries that'll hold us over until then. On that note, though, Brandon, let me ask you, how do you feel about Mario vs. Donkey Kong?
At first, I did not care about it because all of the recent Mario vs. Donkey Kong games have looked like not interesting. Like, as far as I know, like the original did not focus on the minis. And that's what we're seeing here. Like, there are minis, but that's not the focus. Everything I've seen of the new ones is like the minis is like the whole game. Like, it's just like the whole puzzle is just the minis move forward, and you're supposed to like get the minis to a certain goal, which is fine, but like not that interesting. But this looks like an actual like platformer with puzzles, and it looks a lot more interesting than the new stuff. So I'm not gonna say that like, oh, this is a day one buy, I'm definitely gonna get this, but I'm definitely interested in the game. I'm gonna see how see more from the game, see if it's something I want to pick up, and depending on the price, I hope this isn't $60, but probably will be.
What, Mario vs. Donkey Kong?
Yeah,
it's $50.
$50? Okay,
that's the price. Yeah,
I might pick it up then.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a bit of conversation about this price gouging. Like, some people think it's unfair that Mario vs. Donkey Kong is $50 because the original Game Boy Advance release was not $50.
What? That has nothing to do with the price now, though. That was so long ago.
I mean, inflation.
You might as well be upset that the Switch isn't launching at the same price as the GBA. Because they're both handhelds.
Yeah, I mean, it has modern visuals, right? Like, it looks nice.
It's not the same game. Like, I mean, it is the same game, but they remade it, so it's just. Yeah, but the argument makes no sense.
I don't know. I mean, I think we have to wait and see if there's any new, how much new content is in the game, if any, because you can beat Mario vs. Donkey Kong in like 3 to 4 hours. I think most people probably won't finish it that quickly, but I mean, it's definitely not like a long game.
Link's Awakening you can beat in like less than 10 hours easy, and that game was $60.
Well, some people complained about that too, and that had the dungeon maker.
And that was also like a complete like reimagining of that game too, because they like had the ability to like go between, seamlessly between zones and stuff.
Yeah, I want to point out, guys, I can't get to every question or chat, but I am actually I'm starring certain chats, so like in between topics, I will read through some. So I am paying attention. Just for the record, I want you guys to know that I just can't get to everything, but I am gonna get to some that you guys are putting up. I'm trying not to lose track of them.
Real quick to clarify, I think the game would probably be better priced at $40. I just think the argument that it should be the same price as the GBA original is just a dumb argument. But I think you could make other good arguments for it being $40.
Yeah, I kind of thought that it was going to be an eShop title, and seeing that it's a physical release, I mean, a lot of people prefer physical, but is it worth the $50? So how much?
It is a remake. I imagine it will have more content if they took the time to like fully remake all of the visuals.
I was okay with Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, I think being what, the full 60? Because that's two games. It's 2 games.
They're pretty small games though.
Well, it's all relative.
Yeah. I mean, that's just GBA games in general. Like, if they remade Minish Cap, people are like, "Oh, it's short." Like,
yeah,
of course it is.
If you account for inflation, I mean, like, what was so? A lot of Game Boy Advance games were $30. Some of them were $40, but let's say 30. What was $30? $30 in 2003.
Something like that.
$30 in 2003 is equivalent of purchasing power to about $50 today.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. There you go. 20 years. It's literally inflation. So
yep.
There you go. I'm not joking. Literally, I'll show you guys. I Google it. Like, I'll just.
Dude, if you go by inflation, where lucky games are still $60 on Nintendo consoles.
Look. Is it sharing? There it is.
Yep.
$30 in 2003 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $50.06 today. Like, that I googled $30 in 2003. Like, it's just what it is. So, yeah, that's what it is.
What are you gonna do?
Kind of funny, but yeah. So I personally, maybe it's because I'm trying to budget myself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the thing is, like, I would pick up so many more games if I had more money and time.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to buy Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
If I had infinite money and time, I would definitely play it. It looks interesting.
Yeah, I want it. I just don't know if I want it for $50. Even though, yes, I understand inflation. But the thing is, I didn't buy Mario vs. Donkey Kong back on Game Boy Advance in 2003 either. Of course,
the other thing about inflation is we're not making more money, so things are still more expensive.
It's funny how that works. It is funny how that works, but let's.
That's a topic for this podcast.
Not this podcast, no. Anyway, let's see. We talked about Peach. We talked about Paper Mario. We talked about Mario vs. Donkey Kong, F-Zero 99. We already covered
about Thousand Year Door.
Oh, what do you want to talk about 1,000 Year Door?
Well, I mean, we still haven't gotten to everything about how much this game's like reimagined. I mean, like, it goes beyond even stuff we covered in the video, because I noticed a lot of things during editing, because in the video we talk about different like, obviously there's a different art style for things, like different things are made of paper now instead of trying to look semi-realistic and stuff, but it goes deeper than that. It goes even deeper than just, oh, this isn't in the same position anymore. Like, there are cutscenes where I'm like, I can't find when they say this, but I know this is when they say it, and then I'll see the same dialogue, but it'll be coming from a different person. And if you look carefully in the comparison, you'll notice this yourself. There's scenes, and for example, in the train sequence of the game when you're doing the mystery, there's a scene where in the remake everybody's like, "Oh, a mystery, whoa!" And I was trying to find that in the original, but that never happens. In fact, only one character says that in the original, not everybody. But in the trailer for the remake, clearly everybody says it. And then there's another time where Goombella and the Professor Goomba are talking, and in the GameCube original, Goombella says something, but in the remake, it was said by the Professor instead. And there was yet another cutscene where Bowser was yelling something at a minion, and he chose a different word as what he was yelling in the remake versus the original. And it goes beyond even that with entire things like different animations for different reactions to things, like entirely new animations.
Like them freaking out with pig transformation.
Yeah. cutscenes not playing at the same speed. Like they sped up a lot of cutscenes. For example, we showed the paratrooper coming in way faster.
And that
on
might
the
just
Switch
be
version.
so the game's a little bit easier to pay attention to, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes we'll get tired of seeing slow-paced cutscenes, so speeding that up a little bit just kind of helps to keep people engaged.
Yeah, another one you'll notice if you watch closely in the comparison is in Blitzville. There's like a paper blue ramp that kind of unfolds after you hit a button, and in the GameCube original, it's like very stiff animation, and the actual material is very stiff too. But in the new one, it has like this flowing like paper animation to it, and it comes out much faster, and it kind of like looks like cloth hanging down. So like the cloth actually starts waving as the animation stops, as the cloth like settles. It's not just stiff like boards anymore. Like they completely changed that material, and the animation data is all new. Like it seems like a lot of the animations are based off of the original animations, but it seems like even the animation data, like they went and remade the game. Like they looked at the original game and then they remade everything from scratch. Like every single asset of the game, every single animation in the game. There's another scene where the dragon, I forget his name, but the dragon boss, he does
The
like a
Hooktail?
roar at the beginning. Hooktail, yeah. He does a roar at the beginning, and the roar is actually completely animated. It's not the same at all as the roar he does in the remake. So it seems like every animation, like they may have based it off of the original, but they remade every single aspect of this game from scratch, including even who says what in the cutscenes. This is a complete rethink, which bodes well for this coming out on Switch 2 and not just Switch, since it seems like there's a lot of actual creative effort. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people from the original development team helped with this game, considering they completely rethought like aspects that even like cutscenes and story elements.
You wonder if like there's gonna be like extra content in this.
I would love it, because there's a segment in the game where, I mean, every time you beat a chapter, Luigi will have these stories of a different kingdom that he goes to and explores. So I would love it if they added like little segments in between, because you can already play as Peach and Bowser in between chapters. But if they added a segment where you actually play as Luigi off in a different kingdom, that would be amazing. And it wouldn't be too hard to add, because it would only need to be like 10 to 15-minute gameplay segments in between chapters.
That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, that I want to see that now.
That would blow my mind. But I don't know if they're going to do that. But they are putting a lot more effort into this game than even I would have ever expected.
A lot of Nintendo remakes and remasters have added content. So
True.
I don't think it's a huge stretch. I'm not sure if we should expect it, but I think it's definitely possible.
I'm just not trying to get my hopes up for something I'm already like over the moon about.
Yeah, like
I don't need any aspect of disappointment in something that I'm 11 out of 10 on the excitement chart for.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a big deal. I think some people are sleeping on this game. Now, I think it does deserve to be an end of show reveal. And I think some people were kind of questioning if this was warranted. My only problem with it is just the variety. It was like another Mario remake, when we're getting a lot of remakes and remasters and a lot of Mario games already. Like that's not like the best look.
Right. And I understand not everybody has nostalgia for this game too. Like
sure. But the game itself, like outside of the external factors, like it's a high quality remake.
Yeah.
We make the point of it in the graphics comparison today. It is maybe, if not the most ambitious remake Nintendo's ever done. It's definitely in that conversation.
And this is widely considered to be one of the best Mario games ever by the Nintendo community, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, Paper Mario games, it's widely considered to be the best one. Some people prefer the original, but I think the popular opinion is Thousand Year Door is better. I prefer Thousand Year Door. I think if you're a fan of the Mario universe, there is no better game to get some extended Mario universe, amazing characters and lore and goodness than Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Like no game does it better.
That's the one thing that's like about Paper Mario games, is that it kind of allows you to actually explore more of the world of Mario. So it's exciting to think about. And I'm a big fan of Origami King. I love Origami King. It's actually one of my favorite
Origami
Switch
King's
games.
great. It's just a
Yeah.
very different type of game, and it
Sure.
does not even come close to touching on the like extended lore side of Mario as a Thousand Year Door does.
Interesting.
When you play that game, you'll understand the difference.
Okay. So let's transition. I want to get to a few chats that have been provided, and then we'll get into the final topic. We only have 2 big topics today, but they're big topics. So
They're big topics for sure.
All right. So here's a few chats I kind of starred that I would kind of get to. I took note of. Connor asked, "Hey, Andres Restart, do you think we'll ever do remastered versions of Kirby Triple Deluxe and Kirby Planet Robobot since we didn't get anything for Kirby in that direct?" It is interesting. We haven't gotten a Kirby game announcement because we get one every year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could see Planet Robobot getting a remake. That'd be hype.
It
kind of got overshadowed by the Switch because it came out very late in 3DS.
Yeah, that's one of those Kirby games that I wish I played, but I didn't. So I would actually be all for a remaster of that. Actually, I'd be very happy for that. Will it happen? Well, we get Kirby games every year. Sometimes we get a big game and a small game in the same year. So I wouldn't put it past them. We did just get the remastered Return to Dreamland Deluxe, so I'm not sure I'm expecting another remaster immediately. But could I see another Kirby game get remastered for like maybe the last year's Switch or something? Yes. I hope it's Planet Robobot.
Yeah,
because that's one of the few Kirby games I haven't played. It's like, yeah. Planet Robobot though is highly praised. Like it's considered one of the best Kirby games. So I'd be all for it.
I played the demo. It was really good.
Okay. All right. Next question. Giancarlo. Paper Mario: 1,000 Year Door seems ready for ray tracing, the hooktail scene. So in the graphics analysis, I talk about a possible Switch 2 version, and you know, I'm again the optimist, right? But like, if Nintendo's planning like a lot of like Switch 2 like improved versions, if their way to do it is like 4K 60 with ray tracing with a lot of games that you like, a lot of remakes and remasters, like it would be really cool. And there are some pretty spectacular lighting effects for Switch standards in 1,000 Year Door. So if they kind of like up that with like ray tracing through DLSS 3.5, like that would be, it would be awesome. So I personally have my kind of eyes peeled for that, for if it does happen. But you know, it's one of those things where we won't know until, you know, we get some kind of evidence, right? Just because the game looks good doesn't mean it's going to look even better on, like, you would have to see what Nintendo's intent is with Switch 2 if they plan on doing things like that. But I do have an optimism that they may.
I think that game, they wouldn't do it just because the bake solutions work so well for that type of game. You don't really need to take the time to implement a real-time solution into the engine. I think 4K 60 FPS would be much easier and more profound updates for that game. More easily noticeable.
Then things may pop just a bit more.
I think ray tracing would up the fidelity of certain effects, but they're essentially already simulating ray tracing.
What about HDR?
HDR is great. Yeah, HDR. Essentially what HDR does is, I mean, the first thing it does is it allows you to work in a bigger color space. So there's more colors available to you, so you can have a lot more realistic shades of colors and more variety of colors. But the biggest thing that HDR does is it allows you to change the brightness level of individual pixels like on a display. So if you're, for example, looking at the sun, it would have the pixels where the sun is displaying actually display brighter than the rest of the pixels around it. So you get really nice contrast that looks extremely realistic, where the actual panel is adjusting the contrast with the brightness on a per pixel level. Now you need a display capable of doing that, so you would need an OLED for per pixel, or if you wanted something that's more like an LCD, you could get a mini LED, which has like dimming zones where it has like parts of the TV that can dim and parts that don't, so it offers like a less precise effect. But on OLED, you can get that per pixel HDR that looks amazing. But you also need a little bit more processing power to drive that effect, because you need to drive the data for which pixels need to be at what brightness. And then you need the game to actually support HDR to tell the TV what pixels need to be at what brightness, Otherwise, it doesn't know. Most games are built with what's called an HDR pipeline, which essentially does like contrast in the game. But HDR, in the sense that people typically talk about with displays, is what I just described.
Okay, so there's definitely room for 1000-Year Door to be improved, but it looks great as is.
HDR would look amazing in Nintendo games. I really wish the Switch OLED allowed HDR, but they don't.
Yeah, well, maybe on Switch 2.
Maybe.
All right, so next question here. Connor, hey, Andres Restart. Would you guys think of the comparisons between Super Princess Peach on the DS and Princess Peach Showtime? I mean, they're not the same kind of game. I also
Honestly,
never
haven't
played
looked into it.
Super Princess Peach, but I mean, we could take a
Same.
look. We could take a look. I don't know if it's worth doing a comparison of them because they're not. It's not a remake. It's just two different games. But we'll take a look. We'll see.
Oh, is he suggesting that we do a comparison? I thought he just meant what we thought of, just general.
That's how
the differences between the games.
Regardless of what the question is, my point stands on. We'll have to take a look and see if it's kind of worth even making a comparison. But
yeah,
I remember hearing the Super Princess Peach was not a good game, and when I'm seeing a Princess Peach Showtime, it is looking like a good game. So I'm definitely a lot more excited for it. So
yeah, I'm very excited.
All right, Samuel talks about games. Andres, unless they reveal the Switch 2 before a potential February Direct, I feel they'll skip it for a Switch 2 presentation in March or April. Thoughts? I mean, I pretty much, I've said it. I kind of think Switch 2 is getting revealed in March, if not sooner. I personally don't really subscribe to the idea of Switch 2 being showcased in a random Nintendo Direct. Like, I don't think it's going to be a surprise announcement. I think Nintendo will have like some sort of social media announcement saying, hey, we're going to have an event where we'll be announcing our next generation console or something like that. So we'll get some kind of warning, and then there'll be some sort of reveal, be it a direct presentation, a live stream conference, or a teaser trailer, and then that event. But yeah, that's how I kind of think it'll shake out. I'm not expecting like a surprise direct.
I'm hoping for a pre-recorded video, and I hope they release it as a premiere instead of live streaming it. Because if you release it as a premiere, you can essentially live stream it. I mean, using quotes, but in full quality. Because it's essentially already uploaded. You're just allowing people to view certain parts of it as the stream goes on. So you get a much higher quality, much less compression. It's you're using a lot more bitrate than a live stream. So you can do like 4K 60 FPS with nice quality, which would look nice to show off their games, instead of like a stream at like 1080p with like super compressed and doesn't look good.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what they'll do, but I think the premiere process is a good way to do it.
The reason I bring that up specifically is because that's what Sony did for their State of Play that was last week, which they announced right after the Direct got announced, by the way.
Yeah, the timing was interesting, to say the least.
It was a little sus.
Yeah, well, moving on. World of Force Booster. F-Zero at Switch 2 launch until they get Mario Kart 9/10 ready. Yeah, but we don't know what they're going to consider Mario Kart next market, if it's going to be 9 or 10. But F-Zero at Switch 2 launch. I don't know.
Maybe.
I like the idea of playing a new F-Zero between Mario Karts.
Yeah.
Is it conceivable that the GX remaster could come out sometime in the second half next year, and it's kind of like treated as like a big F-Zero game with a nice online multiplayer, and it's something that we can enjoy and play, and it'll be kind of a big deal.
Closer to level like Metroid Prime remastered in terms of visuals, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe they don't even title it F-Zero GX Remastered. If it has enough new content in there, they might kind of almost do like a bit of a rebrand for it. Maybe like F-Zero GX Deluxe or
F-Zero NX.
or maybe an NGX or something. I don't know. Well, I mean, actually, because there was F-Zero AX, there was F-Zero GX. Because F-Zero AX was released alongside F-Zero GX. It was the arcade version, and it had different tracks and characters, but you can unlock the AX content in GX had all the AX content, but it was really hard to unlock. So it would be interesting if they kind of put a play on that. It would be cool.
It would be, but at the same time, they didn't call F-Zero on the GameCube F-Zero DX for Dolphin, so I don't think they're gonna do NX for NX.
I don't know. Could be SX, FX, WX, something X. We'll see. We'll see. Regardless of what they call it, I mean, I could see the F-Zero coming out before the next Mario Kart and it having a significant online multiplayer. I mean, it might be smart. It might be smart for Nintendo to do something like that.
It'd be hype.
So, yeah, maybe F-Zero 99 is them planting seeds to kind of get more people aware of the F-Zero brand. All right. Having Hope 5, Andres, when do you think we'll get Prime 2 and 3? I think we'll get Prime 2 and 3 next year. I think they're going to come out before Prime 4 comes out in the second half of next year. And given that we haven't seen... I mean, conceivably Prime 2 could come out early next year and Prime 3 comes out in the summer. But I think the chances of them coming out together have increased because Prime 2 hasn't been announced yet.
I think they're going to be smaller deals, maybe bundled together at $60 to help it sell.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, it may be like a Pikmin 1 and 2 situation where they came out shortly before Pikmin 4. So, but I do believe they're coming up before Prime 4. So I think we'll see Prime I would say at the latest we see them come out next summer. At the latest. Potentially Prime 2 is announced early next year.
I could see them both getting announced in the February mini direct.
Yeah, we're assuming it's a mini. We don't know. Yeah. So Super Tornado asked, do you think we could see one more last Kirby spinoff from HAL? I hope so. I would love just Kirby Air Ride to be remastered. They could easily come up with a new Kirby spinoff. They've done several. I expect they will continue to make more. So I think there probably will be another new spinoff. No idea what it is because it's kind of something random every time, but they've done several, and I'm sure they'll continue. All right, so next topic. Switch 2 details. What am I getting at here? Well, there's two different stories that have been circulating between today and yesterday. One of which is, to be honest with you, I've had some stuff going on, so I may need to do a little bit more research on this. But I'm kind of confused as to why people are talking about this today, because we were talking about this months ago.
Right.
It has to do with the FTC versus Microsoft case, and there was an information that came from Bobby Kotick. Apparently, he was talking to Shunto Furukawa, which we already knew. We already knew this stuff, but I guess there's imagery of the email that's come out. I don't know if this is new, but it shows it's redacted stuff, so I'm assuming it's coming from the legal case. So again, I don't know why this is being talked about now all of a sudden.
Yeah, I was pretty sure we saw that.
We've seen this stuff, but let me just kind of read you some of the things that were said. Because I guess it's important. Share screen. Okay, so I'm not reading the article per se, just the things that are coming from this legal case.
While you read that out, I'm just gonna be right back.
Okay. All right, given the closer alignment to Gen 8 platforms in terms of performance and our previous offerings on PS4/Xbox One, it is reasonable to assume we can make something compelling for the NG being next generation Switch as well. It will be helpful to secure early access to development hardware prototypes and prove that out nice and early. There's more here. FTC. So even without Microsoft buying Activision, it's likely that Activision would on its own make Call of Duty available for Nintendo's future console, right? Kotick, we would consider it once we had the specs. They don't have the specs yet, or at the time, but we don't have them at present. We missed out on the opportunity for this past generation of Switch, but we'd have to wait until the specifications. We don't have any present plans to do so. FTC, it's likely that Activision on its own would make Call of Duty game for Nintendo's future generation console, right? codec. I think once we get the detailed specifications, we missed out on this past generation of Switch, so I'd like to think that we'd be able to do that. We'd have to wait until specifications, but we don't have any present plans to do so. So a lot of people are running with this and saying that Switch 2 is as powerful as PS4 or Xbox One. First off, they didn't have the specs when this information came out. And this was holiday of 2022. You see here, December 1st, 2022. So I think the interesting thing here is just that they were already having conversations as of 2022 about next generation Switch. They didn't have the specs yet, so they didn't really know. But what they're saying here is that the Switch 2 is closer to PS4, Xbox One, which are the more relevant platforms of the time. So it's more likely that it can get modern Call of Duty ports. And that's pretty much it. I don't think it's telling us that this is where the power of Switch 2 is. And I highlight this because given the information we've gotten recently about the tech demos, I think Switch 2, I mean, maybe like raw power wise, it is like a PS4 or something like that. Maybe a little bit above, but still in that vicinity.
Right.
But
I was muted too long. I came back
Yeah.
like a little bit ago. Yeah, I think in
Wrong.
terms of raw power, it could definitely be similar to like PS4 and Xbox One. I mean, we see like the Steam Deck, that's a little bit lower than the PS4's raw GPU. But in terms of like feature set, it's going to be far above and beyond. In terms of CPU power, it will be far above and beyond. In terms of storage speeds, it will be far above and beyond. In terms of RAM, it will be far above and beyond. And the actual games, the end result is going to be a generation ahead of what the PS4 can do. Even though it's going to be, probably within the ballpark of PS4 level GPU power.
Yeah.
Probably, maybe a bit above, maybe a bit below, but somewhere in that range. Yeah, that's totally what I'm expecting. Somewhere around 2 teraflops.
Yeah. I think that it. I just don't even like that we're talking about this today because I know everyone's talking about it today, but I just don't understand why it's new information.
It's
Maybe
not
there's something
relevant.
missing.
It's not anything new. In fact, it's less information that we've had before.
Yeah.
They
know
They did not have the specs.
They didn't have the specs
no
exactly, so they don't really
factual information themselves. What could they tell us?
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of it. Kind of curious what you guys in the chat think, but I think that it's I don't want to say it's a nothing burger.
It's pretty close.
I think maybe an important detail is that they were talking about this as early as late 2022.
I think in terms of new information to come out of this versus what we were already talking about months ago, this is a nothing burger.
Yeah. Now, there is something that's maybe a something burger. And that is that we're seeing here. Let me point this out to you guys. I'll share it. This is maybe a bigger deal. And also maybe a better sign of what the Switch 2 was going to be able to do in terms of visuals. So here is Atsushi Iizuka. I think that's an extra I. It's always I wish I's were depicted differently because sometimes they look like L's, like it's weird. But anyways, it's Iizuka.
It's probably a second I because if it was an L, it wouldn't look like that. That looks like a lowercase L. So it's capital I.
Anyway, point is, if you look at he's been a long time Nintendo employee, and he's been credited for 16 different games here. Disney Illusion Island, special thanks. Shin Megami Tensei 5, Nintendo, Baldur's Gate 3, special thanks. Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Smash, Xenoblade. If you look at the list here, all of them, except for Baldur's Gate 3, were for some type of, well, there's an exception, Nintendo platform. There is Mario Kart Arcade GP, which is not a Nintendo platform, but it's a Nintendo game. So
Nintendo IP, yeah.
Point is, every single entry here is in some way tied to Nintendo, except for Baldur's Gate 3. Now it says 2020, but that's just because of the initial like early release of Baldur's Gate 3. This special thanks was added this year. So basically, a lot of people are taking this to mean that Baldur's Gate 3 is coming to Nintendo Switch too.
I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if it came to Switch 2, even if there wasn't this. It's a popular third-party game, and I think Nintendo's third-party support is going to be popping off on Switch 2 with how much easier it's going to be to port than compared to now on Switch.
Yeah. So my perspective is that, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same page with you, Brandon. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is a strong candidate for a Switch 2 title, and this doesn't confirm that, right? There's other reasons to thank a Nintendo developer, but if you look at all the other games he's gotten special thanks for, they've been somehow in some shape or form kind of tied to Nintendo. So I do think there is an implication. It's not certain, but there is an implication that that may be the case. So
the concept that a Game of the Year contender from the year prior could be a Switch launch title or close Switch 2 launch title is not that crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's important is that like Baldur's Gate 3 is not on the PS4 or Xbox One, right?
No.
So if Switch 2 gets it, it speaks volumes. And you look at like there's reports today how a lot of articles are saying, oh, Switch 2 is as powerful as PS4, Xbox One, which is a really misleading headline, I would say. You look at this information, it's kind of, it sort of speaks to the fact that Switch 2 is more relevant to PS5 series and Xbox series than it is to PS4, Xbox One. And I'm not from a raw teraflops perspective, just in terms of what reality is, like what kind of games it's going to run.
Yeah. If the Matrix Awakens demos is real, that alone puts it in a generation above PS4 and Xbox One. They didn't get that demo. There's no way that demo could run. There's no ray tracing acceleration. The CPUs are not capable of running Unreal Engine 5 games at that fidelity. Like, the CPU power is going to be a big thing, because even though the raw grunt of the GPU may be similar to PS4, in terms of CPU, it's going to be leaps and bounds ahead, which is going to enable it to run so many other games that the PS4 can't run, and it's going to enable like 60 FPS versions of games that the PS4 definitely wouldn't get.
Yeah, so like it's a bigger deal, right? It's a bigger deal than we heard that someone got Final Fantasy VII Remake to run really well on Switch 2, even if it was the improved PS5 version. So
Baldur's Gate 3 is exceptionally CPU heavy, so both for the CPU power of the Switch.
Yeah, and maybe it really does come down to just kind of modern tech and feature sets, right? As you kind of said earlier, with like the CPU and just like maybe the hard drive or solid state drive, whatever they use, and just all those different things.
All the different features that are built into the GPU that the PS4 GPU doesn't have. Hardware accelerated ray tracing being the biggest one for the Matrix Awakens demo, but not for Baldur's Gate. There's no ray tracing in that, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. So basically, I'm just thinking that Switch 2 is going to get third-party games. Now, I will say that we've been down this road before, multiple generations, where I was like, oh yes, finally the next Nintendo Switch is going to get third-party games. Like, I remember when the Wii came out and it was selling like hotcakes. I was like, yes, because there's so many people people who have a Wii now, third parties will have no choice but to develop for Wii. And some did, but most didn't, right? It was like they put games on Wii, but it wasn't the same games as Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah.
And the Wii U got some at first, but that fell off real quick because there was a lot of bottlenecks, and it was just
the generation difference between PS4 and Wii U ended up being similar to Wii in terms of bottlenecks. That's just been the issue the entire time. Oh, wait, continue what you're saying. I'll say after.
No, even with Switch though, like I think Switch has had a better third-party situation than Wii U, that's for sure. and we got a lot of AAA platform games, but they were like years after they were relevant.
Right.
So it's definitely a different situation. What's being suggested by all the recent leaks and rumors is that Switch 2 is going to get more recent, more relevant third-party games. Now, granted, if we get Baldur's Gate 3 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Elden Ring and Resident Evil 4 Remake, I'm excited for all those games. I probably won't buy all of them, but I'll buy some of them. None of those games are brand new, right? But if we're talking about by next year, like none of those games are gonna be brand new anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those games relatively, but like
the only Switch third-party game that's actually like releasing day and date and is like new would be Mortal Kombat 1, which is a remake.
Yeah. By the way, we didn't see that in the Direct.
No, but we have seen footage now, and it looks rough.
Yeah. Something else wasn't in the Direct? Hogwarts Legacy. It's coming out.
Yeah, that game is not happening on the current Switch until Switch 2, and they're gonna release the crappiest. They're gonna release the crappiest version. Is it still releasing? Okay, maybe it will come out in November, but it's gonna be terrible. That is what I know. It will be terrible, and they'll release the Switch 2 version that'll be good.
I think it's still. They just didn't showcase it. I think they're. I don't know why they didn't show it. I guess
because it's awful. Because it's going to be absolutely horrendous. This game struggles even on PC and PS5 and Xbox Series X, and the Xbox Series S version struggles hard. So the Switch version is going to be. You thought The Witcher 3 was bad, bro? This is gonna. You think Doom Eternal runs at low resolution? This Hogwarts Legacy is not going to be good. I don't foresee a future where they could make this game good unless they literally remade the entire game.
Is there a Hogwarts Legacy DLC on the way?
The PS4 and Xbox One versions, I think, might have actually released now, but they're also, as far as I know, absolutely awful.
I guess maybe what they could do is, like, when Switch 2 comes out, they could have a Hogwarts Legacy version come out for that, and it comes with the DLC or something.
But before we get too sidetracked, I want to continue your point about Switch third party. Because on the Wii, just because it's popular doesn't mean it's actually realistic to port games to the Wii. You can't port games from the 360 to Wii. You're not going to get a port. You can make a whole new game ground up for Wii that tries to be the same game.
That made Wii games back then. There was multiple Call of Duties, and they were pretty good, but they had a separate team.
But it's practically impossible to actually port a game from 360 to Wii. It won't be this. You can't make the same game on Wii as in 360. It just, even if you lower the fidelity, you can't lower the fidelity enough for the logic of those games to run on Wii. They just won't. So you have to make something completely new. And then even for Wii U, once PS4 became popular and cross-gen ended after about a year and a half into PS4 generation, the games that start coming out is the same kind of thing. Like, even the basic logic of the game could not run on Wii U. You could not port those games from PS4 to Wii U. And plus, the Wii U obviously didn't sell. So why would they? Yeah. And then for Switch, now you can finally do ports, but you basically have to do like nearly demakes of games to make them actually look good. Because if you do just a straight port like Doom Eternal, Witcher 3, like they're competent versions of the game that support a lot of the same graphical feature set, but at such low fidelity that it starts to almost look ugly, and you start to lose a little bit of the identity of the game.
I think I remember seeing on Twitter like a Mortal Kombat Switch comparison.
Oh yeah, Mortal Kombat 1 looks rough on the characters. I think the environments look definitely a generation behind, but that makes sense. But the characters models just look uncalled for how bad they look sometimes.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's rough. Yeah, it's some of the times the textures on them.
Let me show you guys this.
It's mostly because the base character models, they don't look great. They're missing like
Look at this.
Subsurface
PS5
scattering.
Version, Switch version.
Yeah, they're missing like a lot of the animation features. They're missing subsurface scattering. The textures are absolutely blasted.
I mean, Brandon,
what's even worse is when effects start coming on screen.
Give me words. Look at the eye test.
Yeah.
Those look like normal eyes.
It looks even like worse when like blood starts appearing on them, bro, because the blood is such low resolution. it's bad.
He's wearing a different shirt. That's how
Instead of
bad the
coming up
textures
with
are.
new
It's a
models
different
and stuff,
shirt.
they just decimated the current assets to work on Switch.
It's not
Like
even the
that, it
same
looks awful.
person.
But like the
It's
backgrounds
not
look
the
fine.
same
Like the backgrounds
person.
look acceptable, but the character models, the face is mostly like this. The rest of the body fine, and this one even holds up fairly well. Like that's fine. The eyes not great,
He's
but other
missing
than the
his hair
eyes, this is
bangs.
fine. Well,
His
yeah, but
hairline's different, Brandon.
yeah, but that's just
He has a different hairline.
that's not that big of a deal.
It's a huge deal. He's a different person.
Keep in
This
mind
is
these.
his cousin. It's not him.
That's also the PS5 version of the game, bro.
Oh man, I'm
I'm saying
this is
relatively
bad.
those. The hairline thing is a cut that makes sense. The textures are inexcusably bad. The eyes are inexcusably bad. The fact that there's no subsurface scattering looks awful, and the skin looks terrible.
Yeah, it's just fugly.
But the hair, yeah, they couldn't do the same hair system on Switch. That was never gonna happen.
I get that, but it's just bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
More Kombat 11 looks better. But to finish my point,
right.
okay, because I explained, Wii and Wii U, you basically had to do full new games. Switch, you had ports, but the ports weren't great, so you kind of had to redo a lot of the game to make it look actually good on Switch. And then now Switch 2, I think it's going to be close enough to where you pretty much just have to port the game using like pretty much the same assets. You might have to craft a few custom things, but most of the time I think it's just going to be like lower the settings, lower the resolution, and then upscale it with DLSS, lower the draw distances, adjust, the NPC draw or whatever, things like that. It's going to be minor changes to the game when it's going to be basically the same game. It's going to be like true ports that actually look good, instead of you having to go in and be like, how can we rethink this game to work on Switch? It's just going to be like, okay, let's make the normal adjustments we would for any kind of port on a slightly lower fidelity system. So I think Switch 2 third parties is going to be well and above what we got on Switch. Is it going to be the same as Xbox Series X and PS5? Probably not. But we're going to get a lot more, and it's going to be a lot more day-and-date stuff, because ports are just going to take less time. So why wouldn't developers do that?
Yeah. I think, we've kind of covered the Switch 2 stuff. I'm ready to just jump into Q&A. Is there anything else you want to mention, Brandon?
Nah, let's jump into Q&A.
Okay. All right, guys. So we are in the final segment of the show. So any questions or points you wanted to bring up, put into the chat now. We're going to try and focus on them for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll be closing out. So I have a super chat here. Let's put that up. Samuel talks about games. Thank you for another super chat. Very much appreciated. Imagine with this PS4 level power with modern architecture, with DLSS as well, what the Zelda team and Molotov could do. Ocarina of Time Remake. An Ocarina of Time Remake would be off the chain.
Yeah.
When I think about an Ocarina of Time Remake, though, I guess the problem I have with it is that I don't want it to just be a visual remake, just because I feel like
I want this to be Final Fantasy 7 levels of remake.
I mean, that's what I want. I don't know if that's realistic, because that's basically a whole new game. But maybe there's a middle ground, right? Like, I guess what I want is just maybe like a slight rethinking of the layout of the world and the dungeon structures, just so it flows a little bit better.
I want them to make the world like a whole open world, no loading screens. You can just walk anywhere.
I mean, that part should be easy.
Yeah, I want them to expand the world so it's bigger, more fleshed out.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know. I just don't know what
I think they do. If you do an Ocarina of Time remake, because you already have the 3DS remakes that are visual enhancements. So if you're gonna do another remake, you gotta go big.
I guess I kind of understand what you're saying. I almost am open to the idea of them remaking Twilight Princess.
You know what I've been thinking? What if? Now this is crazy. This is a little bit crazy, guys. But what if the reason we haven't seen Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD is because they're not just gonna be Wii U ports, but they're gonna be kind of like how they use Wind Waker HD to test out features of on the Wii U. They're gonna add ray tracing and high quality textures, and Wind Waker is gonna be enhanced with ray trace lighting, so that we see more light, a bit brighter lighting effects and global illumination bounce, things like that will look nice in that art style. Because there's very little ways to enhance that art style other side, like more lighting effects. But Twilight Princess, you get ray trace like shadows, and you get like new textures and materials that work with like ray tracing. Bro, that would be nice. You get kind of like a Portal RTX kind of thing, where it's still like probably for Twilight Princess like similar geometry, but all the materials are changed. So like the textures now support like, so wood looks like wood, and it supports the kind of lighting you would expect from like modern games, but with like similar polygonal counts, so they don't have to go in and like redo too much, you know. I think something like that would be, you know, no, I'm not expecting that, but if they did that, bro, that I would pay $60 for each of those for sure.
Yeah, I also think a lot of Zelda fans would flip tables because they wanted it on Switch.
I don't care. Screw them.
There you go, Brandon. You can't just attack the world. You can't
I'm
do
just
that.
angry at the world. Nah.
What's wrong with you? Anyway, I apologize for his behavior. Connor asks me, question is the reason why I want to see those two 3DS Kirby games. The reason why you want to see those two 3D Kirby games getting remastered is because the epilogue modes for Taranza and Suzy, just like what they did with Magalore. Oh, epilogue mode. Okay, I see. Okay, I mean we did get that epilogue for Magalore and Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. So you know it kind of does speak to a lot of Nintendo remasters having extra content. I don't know if we'll get both remastered, but I think at least one will before the end of the Switch era.
Heck yeah.
At least one more because we just got.
We get so many Kirby games every year.
Yeah.
It's almost bound to happen that we'll get at least some sort of remaster.
Mm-hmm.
Something Kirby's coming next year, and I doubt it's going to be a 3D Kirby, so it'll be something smaller.
Yeah. Sam talks about games. I think Tears of the Kingdom wins Game of the Year, but Baldur's Gate 3 is extremely close. I don't know.
I think Baldur's Gate is probably just not as mainstream as Zelda, so I think Zelda will probably have more potential to win Game of the Year at the Game Awards for sure.
Just have a lack of trust.
I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 is an RPG based off of the Dungeons and Dragons IP, correct. So it's not exact. I mean, for us nerds, it's mainstream, but for like the normal person seeing that, they probably won't want to pick it up. Versus like Zelda,
it's reviewed quite well. I mean, there's 107 critic reviews for the PC version, 96.
I'm not saying anything against the game.
Yeah, actually, highest rated games on Metacritic.
I just don't think it's as mainstream of a game as Zelda.
I don't know what the sales are like. Kind of hard to gauge because it's,
Yeah, it's on so many different systems.
Different platforms. Well, I mean, the PC then was Steam, right?
Yes, it's on Steam, but it's also on Xbox and PlayStation, the new ones. Oh no, maybe it's only on Xbox. I don't know. It's on console as well. Some of them. No, I think it is on both.
Is Baldur's Gate on Game Pass?
I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, okay. I just was double checking. Yeah, I maybe you're right. I guess I'm not too sure on the sales part, so I can't say with certainty.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like an RPG, like a more standard RPG, because Zelda's kind of an RPG as well, but a more standard kind of RPG, top down, based on Dungeons and Dragons versus 3D Zelda. In terms of the Game Awards,
I have this fear of just like a little bit of an anti-Nintendo bias. a little bit.
I mean,
Like
Breath of the
I
Wild
feel,
won Game of the Year. Easy.
right, but it wasn't close. It wasn't close. Anything else would have been just not true.
I mean,
So,
Odyssey was close. That was another Nintendo
but
game.
that was another Nintendo game.
Some people could argue. My dad would argue Horizon. That was his Game of the Year.
Yeah, but that's a very personal, subjective opinion.
I mean,
That's
it was
not
rated very highly.
it wasn't close. Like, I'm not saying Horizon wasn't a good game, and I'm not saying you can't prefer it over Breath of the Wild. I'm simply saying that if we're talking about like, what the masses should pick, the decision was clear.
Yeah, in terms of mainstream appeal, that's what I'm saying.
So,
It's like it just matters about mainstream
all
appeal.
I'm arguing is that I've heard Baldur's Gate is sold really well, but I don't know how well that is.
It still doesn't have the sort of appeal like that.
So
the Game
Baldur's Gate
Awards is
3 is
looking for.
is 5.2 on Steam. It's not bad, but it's also not Tears of the Kingdom levels. But also, it's been not as long. So I don't know. I mean, if Baldur's Gate, let's say Tears of the Kingdom's at 25 million and Baldur's Gate's at 15 million, come December.
I don't think it matters. I don't think.
Mhm.
I think it does. No, Zelda would win just at
But
the Game Awards
but
with that
what if they
environment with
want
those
to
people.
award? What if they want to award like a studio that's doesn't have as much notoriety?
They don't.
It's something
the
that's
Game Awards. What are you talking about? They don't care.
We'll see. We'll see. Hey,
When
listen,
have they ever cared about
I
that?
am on Team Tears of the Kingdom, but I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe I should.
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 didn't win Best Music because it was an RPG.
It didn't win Best Music because anti-Nintendo.
No, because it's an RPG. Actually, I feel like the Game Awards is very pro Nintendo. Like they like Nintendo there. It's just the types. It depends on the type of Nintendo
But
game.
they're
If the
anti-Nintendo
Nintendo games,
JRPG.
they're just anti RPGs in general, bro. Just in general, they don't like them.
I mean, Elden Ring.
But yeah, JRPGs for sure. Just any JRPGs. It doesn't need to be Nintendo JRPGs.
JRP.
Any Japanese stuff.
JRPG.
They're very Western focused in general.
Yeah.
But Zelda just has that mainstream appeal that.
Isn't Baldur's Gate pretty Western? So.
No.
Hey, listen. I'm not trying to say that Tears of the Kingdom's not going to win Game of the Year. I'm just not sure.
I'm gonna say it's not even. It's not even close. It's not even close. In terms of the Game Awards appeal.
What's interesting about this conversation is that you are not as high on Tears of the Kingdom as I am.
No.
Like you're like, you think Tears of the Kingdom is a good game, but you don't even necessarily think it's like a great game. I think Tears of the Kingdom's
it's a great game.
Really,
Breath of the
really
Wild
good game.
didn't exist.
Yeah.
I think it used too much stuff from Breath of the Wild, so like it took me way too long to get to the content.
I'm still playing Tears of the Kingdom. I made some discoveries the other night. Like I'm still finding cool things in the game. I'm really enjoying it still.
If Tears of the Kingdom was just its new content and a new environment, it would have been a 10 out of 10 for me. I would have loved that game. The fact that it was set in the same map completely kills it for me. That is the one thing about that game that it just ruined the entire experience for me.
I hear you. I understand. But I got a super chat here. Thank you, Jorge FT. Very much appreciated. You think the Zelda team even cares to do such reimaginings of Ocarina of Time like Final Fantasy VII Remake? Well, that's the sticking point. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think the main Zelda team is going to divert too much resources to a remake like that. They're going to focus.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think the main Zelda team needs to have anything to do with this.
That it would be
Ocarina of Time is a told story. They have everything they need to go on with the original game. Like maybe some light oversight, but as far as actual developers and working on the project, I don't think anybody from the original Zelda team needs to be on it.
It would be a different team. Yeah, there'd be overseeing, but it would be a different team, and they could use the Breath of the Wild engine or something like it, right? Like they could. But it wouldn't be the main Zelda team. That would be that. They're not. Yeah, they're definitely not gonna do a remake. They're working on the next mainline new Zelda game, like 100%.
Oh yeah.
So
always.
Yeah, And I guess, if we think of it from like Brandon's perspective of like it being something that has like a whole open world to explore, some dramatic changes. Can another studio? I think another studio can do that. Monolith Soft maybe could do that actually even.
Yeah, that'd be great.
They've been working on Zelda already. They're great at maybe. Wait, what about Retro Studios?
Yeah.
What if they can? They're already hiring for AAA development. It would be interesting to see a Western studio handle a Zelda title. It would be cool.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they had that canceled Sheet game that they were gonna make that sounded amazing. I really wish they didn't cancel.
Yeah. So let me check this. So Elusive Man was saying, not really a direct measurement of sales, but currently there are 284,744 people playing Baldur's Gate right now on Steam.
That is one thing. Like Baldur's Gate was it did have a lot of concurrent players.
That was kind of
I think
what
the
I was
D&D
wondering
community
about earlier.
Well, the thing is that doesn't necessarily mean mainstream. It just means the community that's into it is big. I think the D&D community is very big, but outside the D&D community and the RPG community, I don't think people really know about this game other than it's really good and they've heard that it's really good, and that's pretty much all they know. And then it's D&D related.
Yeah. Oh, I see Lex didn't see the notification. That's all right. We're ending the show soon, but if you got a question, throw it out. I'll answer it. That's all right. Obviously, everyone, you can watch the replay, but we won't be live at that point. Let's see here. Who's saying lazy? AB James, who's the lazy devs? Who are the lazy devs? I'm just looking through the conversations. I'm trying to see something.
They may be talking about Mortal Kombat 1.
Oh, yeah. That may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The frame rate's not even like flat 60 either. It's very choppy.
Yeah. Wilberforce Booster on the top sellers list. Baldur's Gate 3 is above Starfield on Steam already. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I heard it's doing well.
Yeah, I think the ship has sailed for Starfield winning Game of the Year. So it'll be lucky if it gets a nomination.
It's
very lucky.
I'm hearing it's a good game. It's just not.
I mean, right?
What people thought
there's
it was.
there's a lot of good games. It takes more.
I mean, it is Skyrim in space. So I mean, Skyrim was a huge game.
I don't even know if it's fair to call it that, because Skyrim, you have a massive open world that you can explore continuously. That's not how Starfield is structured.
No.
I haven't played Starfield, but I understand it's very segmented, and you kind of like go from, it's very different. Yeah, I guess for me, the idea of Starfield that was so exciting, but what I didn't know that much about it was that I thought it was kind of like this large open space that I could explore. It's not that, and that's mostly what I was interested in, like a massive world of space to explore, made by Bethesda, like, because I think they would do a great job of that. And I'm not saying it's not a good game, but it's just not what I was hoping it would be. It's not really my cup of tea. I tend to prefer games that have a focus on exploration, so hence why I like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom so much.
Yeah, except I don't like exploring Tears of the Kingdom because I've already explored it.
We've been over this point, Brandon.
I just wanted to say it again.
Yeah. Super Chris, do you plan on playing the 6th wave of the Booster Quest Pass? I do.
Of course.
As I play all the waves.
I'll just be hopping online, I'm sure. Bless your silence.
Excuse me. I tried to mute myself to not sneeze into the microphone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I see another super chat here from Sam who talks about games. Thank you very much for the super chat. Sam says, let's shoot on a September 2024 Switch 2 release date. What games other than Prime for 3D Mario could be around the launch window? Paper Mario 1000 Year Door.
Yes, sir.
I think there will be some kind of party game. I don't know if it's going to be Mario Party. I mean, if
we haven't had a new one in a couple of years, we're definitely doing a new one.
I say the new Mario Party comes out 2025, and instead I'm going to predict there will be a different kind of game. I'm going to say a new Nintendo Land.
Ooh,
Wouldn't that be
that
hype?
would be
though?
hype.
That would be hype, though.
At the same
Yeah.
time, do you think Nintendo wants a Nintendo Land 2 at the near the launch of another console? That just would be ironic. I mean, it
What's
wouldn't be
wrong
the
with it?
launch game, right?
What would be wrong with it?
No, it's just funny because they launched the Wii U with Nintendo Land, and that didn't
Yeah,
do well for them.
but it's not because
No, I know, it's
Nintendo
just
wasn't Nintendo Land's fault.
no, I know. It's funny if they did that again. It would
Nintendo
be
Land
near
was
the launch, but still.
so Nintendo Land was a really cool game.
Yeah, it was a great
The
game.
problem with Nintendo Land is that it was the only game. Like Nintendo Land is not your. It's not a system seller. It's like it's a
No.
complementary title.
It's a system seller for me.
Yeah,
I
get
feel
that.
like if Nintendo had actually made more games like Nintendo Land, I mean that is like the game that encompasses the whole idea of the Wii U the best out of any game on the system by far. So that is the kind of game they wanted to sell their systems. So for them, that was their system seller. So if you don't consider that a system seller, you just don't consider the Wii U ever having a chance of success with their vision, which it didn't. So yeah, that makes sense.
No, I look at Nintendo Land as something kind of like a WarioWare or 1-2 Switch kind of thing, but better.
Like way better.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I view it as like
Yeah.
a kind of like a Mario Party level announcement.
yeah, I mean, I think they could make an even better version of Nintendo. I would love it. I think it would be so good. So
Nintendo Land is one of my
Yeah.
favorite Wii U games, and it's really the only Wii U game that can't really come to any other system and work the same.
yeah. So yeah, that's I don't know if I would call it Nintendo Land a prediction, but man, it would make sense. It would make
Oh
sense.
yeah, I'm definitely not predicting it, but
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Yeah, and maybe I do predict the. I guess my problem is I'm finding myself kind of almost predicting like Thousand Year Door is a Switch game. Maybe F-Zero GX Remaster does come out, right? That's a Switch game. Prime 4 we're predicting to be cross-gen. The Pokemon tile is going to be cross or just for Switch, but back compatibility. So in terms of exclusive games, I think all I have is 3D Mario and then maybe a Nintendo Land kind of style game. Like maybe there be like another.
I think
like,
there could definitely
exclusive.
be a new IP. One of the other comments we read earlier in the podcast was suggesting a new IP, i.e., I think they said ARMS and Snipper Clips, which are both great games. So yeah, I think they'll definitely come out with games like those.
Well, actually,
Snipper
I
Clips
do have
2?
a title.
Can we predict Snipper Clips 2? Dude, I actually love Snipper Clips. Like, no lie, that is an amazing game. If you haven't played Snipper Clips, you should play it with a friend. It uses HE Rumble really well. One of the best showcases of HE Rumble.
I'm just trying to think of something that makes sense. Maybe that's it. Maybe you don't need to have that many new Switch 2 titles. Maybe 3D Mario and a party game like Nintendo Land is enough, alongside a lot of big third-party games.
With Prime
and
4 though,
some strong Prime 4 would be cross-gen. It wouldn't be exclusive.
but still, Switch 2 is like the premier version. Breath of the Wild was cross-gen too. Switch 2 is going to be the shiny version everybody like. It's going to be for the premier version, and Switch is going to be like for the peasant version if you can't afford
Switch 2
Switch 2
comes
yet.
out September, right? And we have Prime 4, a Pokemon game for 3D Mario, and something like Nintendo Land. And then Thousand Year Door and F-Zero GX have visual enhancements as well. Like, that's not bad. Then early next year you have some new thing. Maybe open the year with Donkey Kong, right? You open 2025 with a new Donkey Kong game or something.
Open it with Mario Kart if they don't have Mario Kart.
And then Mario Kart comes out soon after. Like, it's not bad. And Smash Ultimate Deluxe comes out in 2025 as well. Like, you know, like there's other things. Maybe Luigi's Mansion 4 gets announced.
Who knows if they might actually decide to do Tears of the Kingdom DLC for Switch 2. I think there will definitely be some kind of patch or enhancement, so that will be something to replay at Switch launch.
I think a visual enhancement. I don't know about DLC. We'll see, but they've kind of deconfirmed it twice already, so I don't know.
Yeah. I would like just a nice visual enhancement. I would replay the game because that would give me a reason to explore the game again if they actually up the visuals. And I hope they go beyond just 4K 60 and actually like upgrade the textures and asset quality and push out the draw distance. Maybe add ray tracing or something. That would definitely get me to explore the game more.
Yeah. So looking at the chat here, right? Let's see here. Kevin Phage. Was there a September release leak that I missed? Cause is it just because I keep? Are you asking because I keep suggesting September? September just seems. I don't know. I keep circling back to September. September just feels like a good time for me. It's 6 months after March when I think it's being revealed.
I didn't get to read it. There you go.
Was there a September release leak that I missed? Cause
oh no.
Yeah, I'm assuming like it's because I keep suggesting September.
Yeah.
I just think I just feel like September's a good time. Like it's, that 6 month window. So, yeah.
September just sounds right. Plus, I think they released the. Oh wait, when were the Lite in the OLED release? Was it September or August?
Switch Lite came out September 2019. Switch OLED came out October 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, September or October makes sense.
Yeah, I just think
for more time.
I guess that's pretty much it. Like it's still late, but it's early enough that you can get a few games out before the holiday.
Yeah. And we're hearing Nintendo wants to launch it as early as possible, so September more than October makes sense.
Yeah, Lex234 with a question here. My question is, what did you study in college? Curious if it was related to what you're doing now, and how did you get into YouTube? Cool. I haven't done a more personal question in a while. I studied theater in college. When I first went to college, I went in kind of like, it was funny because like when I was in high school, I liked acting, but like the acting program was cut when I was kind of getting really into it.
Dang, that sucks.
I was in like a special kind of like college magnet program in high school. It's called IB. It's basically like a lot of like AP level courses, but with an international influence. So I definitely I was kind of like conditioned to like be very pursue like good school, higher education, even though I didn't necessarily want to do like a typical become a lawyer, become a doctor sort of thing. Like I didn't really care for that. I wanted to do something different. I knew that, but I wasn't sure exactly what. And I had an interest in acting. I always took a lot of art and theater courses, but they cut the theater program, so I couldn't pursue that fully in high school. But in college, I basically went in as kind of like the figure it out major at first, right? And I took some acting courses and I was really enjoying them. And the school I was at, they had a fairly prestigious theater program. So my first semester, I auditioned for it and I got in. And so I transitioned into being a theater major in college. So I studied theater for a while. Acting, I was into the idea of being a film actor. And I've done a few short little things, but nothing super substantial. And then after a while, I went back home and I did a little bit more schooling there. And then at a certain point, I was like, why? I guess I was at a point where like, I don't want to continue to being in school if I'm not focusing on anything that I actually care about. So I decided to go to New York and maybe pursue acting there. But meanwhile, I was also starting YouTube. And I had this idea that I would do YouTube kind of like part-time to help kind of support myself as I like did auditions. But as I got more and kind of involved, I started to see I didn't really like the industry that much. So I kind of started shying away from that. And eventually, I found myself getting more invested into YouTube and just kind of like doing what it would take to pay the bills. And, one job to the next, I found myself in a position late last year where I had some money saved up. I didn't have a lot of bills. So I decided to focus on this full time. And I guess I for the last few years I kind of had this vision that eventually I would do this full time, and now I am doing it full time. Granted, it's still a process, a building process, right? Like I still have a lot
Right.
of growth to do for the channel, but I am doing it full time now. I am paying my bills now. Fortunately, I don't have a lot of bills right now, but it is a full time job, and that's kind of, I guess, like the pathway for me. Like I always had an interest in this, but at first when I started it, I didn't intend on it being like a full time thing. I intended on being kind of like a part time thing, and now it is a full time thing that I have aspirations to grow and make bigger and bigger, and the channel is growing. So I think we're headed in a great direction. It's just really a matter of time, which is exciting. Now, in terms of like, did my college education have any relevance to what I do now? I would say yes, because one, I mean, I still got a solid general education, right? Like I still educated myself, and
Right.
well, I know things, but I would say, the ability to speak well, to speak to large audiences. I do know how to act. We haven't done that many skits on the channel lately, but I have done skits before on the channel. And as time progresses, I would like to incorporate that more. But I guess where I'm at right now is about kind of building up the channel. As the channel expands and I could afford to maybe hire some help, like Brandon helps out sometimes, maybe I can maybe lighten my workload a little bit. The content output would probably be about the same, but maybe with more help, the quality can improve a little bit, and maybe I can kind of open myself up to maybe doing more research and putting teams together to do skits as well, like like really fun shorts, like short films. That's kind
That'd
of
be
like a
awesome.
vision of, yeah. So basically, I guess what it is that for me, I like to talk. I like video games. I like speculation and theorizing and things of that nature. And I like to have fun and do act, right? So that would be maybe incorporating that other last little thing into the channel. So that's kind of like my vision and sort of like what I study and how it relates to what I do now. Yeah. So hopefully
Awesome.
that was good. A good explanation. Yeah.
Get to know you a bit more. Know the
Did you not
real
know,
Andres.
did you not know that? I haven't never told you that.
No, I'm saying the audience.
Oh, well, here you go.
Obviously, I knew all that.
Yeah. Like says, be on camera is hard. Be on camera is hard. It is hard.
Yeah. That's why I'm
sometimes
not on camera. Also, I just don't have one.
Being on camera all the time is hard. Sometimes I do my recorded videos on camera, but sometimes it's easier just to go easier to go faceless. Because like like you got to make sure the set is clean and organized, and you're well showered and put together, and every day doing that, and then the editing, right? And then when you're on camera, I think you're more self-conscious about how you're saying things, how you're doing things. So there's different kind of little layers to that. It's not easy. So for those that are on camera every time, just take note that it ain't easy to do. Sammy talks about games. At me, it's very cool that you had this dream at a point and have now achieved the dream of going all in on YouTube. It's pretty inspiring, to be honest. Well, I'm glad that I can be some source of inspiration. Again, I don't want to act like I'm a big time YouTuber. I am not. I have I still have a long, I still have a lot to do and accomplish. Like we're still small time, but I'm maybe big enough time that, like I said, I can continue to do this full time for the time being. And my expectation is that I will continue to do it full time for a long time to come. But that I have to continue to push and grow the channel. So, yeah. Anyways, I think maybe that's a good point to end the stream. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. If you could like the podcast, we very much appreciated. But yeah, that is it. Hope you have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye, guys.